All right, I will call to order the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Wednesday, April 8th, 2026. We're in the James H. Crocker Jr. Hearing Room on the second floor of Town Hall at 367 Main Street, Hyannis, Mass. To all persons interested in or affected by the action of the Zoning Board of Appeals, you're hereby notified pursuant to Section 11 of Chapter 48 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and all amendments thereto that this public hearing will be held today, April 8th, 2026. I will call the meeting to order by introducing board members. To my left, Manny Alves.
Present.
Herb Bodenseek.
Present.
And to my right, Deborah Dorcas.
Yeah.
Aaron Webb.
Present.
And I am Jacob Dewey. Notice recording the meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel in accordance with MGL Chapter 38, Section 20. I must inquire whether anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Seeing none. First item would be minutes. We had January 28th, 2026 minutes and February 11th, 2026 minutes. Someone want to make a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. Our one item tonight, old business, appeal number 2025-025, which was re-advertised. Great Marsh Development LLC has applied for a comprehensive permit pursuant to MGL Chapter 40B, Sections 20, 21, 22, and 23, and 760 CMR 56.00. The applicant proposes to develop an affordable housing community on 6.764 acres. The homes at Centerville Cove will consist of 20 detached, 3-bedroom, single-family dwellings. The residents at Centerville Cove will consist of 36 rental units in one building with a mix of 2- and 3-bedroom apartments. The subject property is located at 39, 51, 61, and 75 Great Marsh Road, 195 Finney's Lane, and 40 Richardson Road, Centerville, Mass, as shown on Assessor's Map 210 as parcels 124, 125, 126, 134-003, 134-004, and map 209 as parcel 020, respectively. They are located in the Residency, RC, and the Highway Office, HO zoning districts, and the Resource Protection Overlay District, the RPOD. This members were assigned, myself, Herb Bodenseek, Aaron Webb, Manny Alves, Deborah Dorcas, all members present here tonight. This was continued from January 14, 2026 and February 11, 2026. And the revised plans were submitted April 1st, 2026. And just to note, this matter was continued from October 22nd, 2025 after 2025-024 Egan Capital variance request was withdrawn. Both items were related, so comprehensive permit 2025-025 was re-advertised to give the public notice of the revised application. Attorney Singer.
Thank you. That was a mouthful.
Only one tonight.
Good evening. For the record, Andrew Singer, attorney on behalf of the applicant. I'm going to be very brief as an introduction, and then, as everyone knows, different from the original legal ad that you just read, there's been a very substantial proposal to revise the application, which was submitted and is before you tonight. Mr. Egan is going to discuss that with you, project applicant briefly, and then Matt Eddy from Baxter and I is going to take us through in detail the plans that are there. I'll come back briefly after that, just as our initial presentation. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Egan.
Thank you, Counselor. Mike Egan, Osterville, Massachusetts. I represent Great Marsh Development and Egan Capital Corp. After listening to several town officials and in discussions with town planning, we were invited to meet with town planning, and we went through the math, if you will, and we're proud to present what we consider an improvement to the proposed design, and it is our intention to build essentially 35 new single-family homes, and for a total of 36 single-family homes when you include the pre-existing house at 40 Richardson. 35 will be new, and they will be marketed 25% of 36, which is 9. will be sold to people who qualify at no more than 80% AMI. And it is our intention, should we qualify for Commonwealth Builder financing, for the remainder, which could actually include 40 Richardson, but probably not, the remainder 27, my math is 26, it would be sold to people who qualify at 100% of the AMI. Jim told me I had to answer that question, so. We think the road layout is slightly more elegant. We lose the large parking space at the apartment building, which makes the road better for many reasons. It helps with stormwater management, and it drops the density from essentially 36 units down to 56 units, down to 36, and we think it's an improvement to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, Matthew Eddy, professional engineer with Baxter & I Engineering and Surveying. As was just introduced to you by Andrew and Michael, the proposal before you now is a 36-lot single-family subdivision, 35 new lots with one existing at 40 Richardson. What we have submitted, we've advanced the detail in the civil engineering plans. I'd like to walk those through with you. The plans that we've submitted, these are providing more detail than is typically provided in a comprehensive permit. Mike agreed to take on that additional effort and cost for us to do that. Obviously, with the revised layout, we know that there's, the main detail is there, I think, for you to be able to deliberate on. There will be additional engineering detail provided through the town review process when we're dealing with the departments prior to construction. And I just wanted to kind of note as we kick off here that the applicant, he has agreed that we will go back through informal site plan review prior to construction, and we will address and meet all of the comments provided by the departments through site plan review. So with that, I'm not going to walk through the existing conditions information. I think we did that previously unless anybody has any questions on that. So I'll just jump right into the proposal. So again, 36-lot subdivision, 35 new lots. The existing 40 Richardson lot will be approximately 31,580 square feet. The 35 new lots will range in size from 5,005 square feet to approximately 8,606 square feet. The home styles are as was submitted previously. There is the Cape style, two-story, and the one-story ranch style. The new subdivision layout consists of approximately 1,430 lineal feet of new roadway. The road is designed at 20 feet wide, plus Cape Cod berms along each edge of the roadway. It's designed as defined as a minor A road under the subdivision regulations. We have requested a few waivers from the subdivision regulations for the minor A road, which include a 40-foot right-of-way, whereas normally a minor A road is a 50-foot right-of-way. The road width, though, travel pavement width is the same, 20 feet, which is what a minor A is. And then we've reduced the centerline radii down to 50 feet, which actually in current engineering design and standards, you actually want to, it helps slow traffic down. Previously there were much larger radii on road design, and the subdivision regulations kind of reflect that older way of thinking, if you will. The reduced radii definitely provides for necessary circulation, emergency vehicle access, et cetera, and it actually helps keep traffic moving slower. As far as zoning information, there's the waiver list that's been submitted. I'm just going to touch on a few of them. From the setbacks for the lots, we are proposing a 20-foot front setback, a 7.5-foot side setback, and a 10-foot rear setback. The waivers that those would hit on in the RD1 zone, again, we have 3 zones, right? We got RD1, we have RC, and we have HO, which is highway office, the highway office is only that little triangle there, but we have to address it, obviously. But in the RD1 zone, the front yard is 30 feet under the zoning ordinance. We're asking for it to be 20 feet. The RC zone is 20, so there's no waiver there. And then in the RD1 and RC, it's a 10-foot side setback. We're asking for 7.5 feet. And then the HO zone, again, the HO is really more of a commercial zone. The rear yard is 20 feet, and we're asking for 10, so that would just be right along there. Access into the project hasn't changed from what you saw previously. The main entrance is off of Great Marsh Road, directly across from Juniper. It's in the same general location of there's an existing driveway curb cut out there. It's shifted slightly to the left, plan left, which is easterly. And just, the location of that entrance, because I know there's been a lot of, discussion about that. Aligning the road entrance directly across from the existing Juniper Road is the best alignment from an engineering standpoint. I mean, that's the practice that you want to do, to align intersections. So when you're at a road, you're directly across the other road. When you offset them somewhat, unless you have a significant offset, it can cause traffic turning movement issues as people are pulling out of the 2 alternate roads that aren't directly across from each other. We eliminated the emergency access, that secondary emergency access that in the old layout, the road came out here and we had the secondary access was right there, or the emergency access, I should say. We think with the reduced density and unit count that additional emergency access is not needed. So we've removed it, and I know we heard comments along those lines from several people and board members. And if COM Fire says that they need it, we can put it back in. It would be identified right there. And it would, from an emergency access standpoint, it would work totally fine. Because obviously, an emergency access, it's blocked all the time. It's only during an emergency. Fire trucks showing up, lights going on. Everybody's got to pull over and stop. They get in, they do their thing, and they're on their way. So, as submitted in the plan set, we show the fire department ladder truck circulation through the subdivision, and showing that the ladder truck can make all necessary circulation through the project. As far as pedestrian circulation, we still have the sidewalk here. It's shortened a little bit, because again, it used to be down here when the road was there. So we have a proposed sidewalk off of the end of this T turnaround that connects to the existing crosswalk on 28. Again, that was a request by DPW when we were going through the project eligibility review. So that is still part of the plan. And with that, hopefully this is loaded up. It's loading a little slow here, so bear with me. Come on. Well, as that's loading, that's the landscape plan. So we've provided, which I will point to when it shows up, there's a 8-foot vegetated buffer of the existing trees along Great Marsh Road that we're proposing to save. We've also identified that buffer will be augmented with additional plantings determined in the field once the clearing is done, and you can see where you have spacing and so forth. And I think a reasonable proposal is if we have, spaces greater than 30 feet, would add it. I don't know what it's doing right now. Would add, did I hit it? We would add a tree so that we have at least one street tree along Great Marsh Road every 30 feet, which is typical to the zoning ordinance or the subdivision regulations. Sorry. afraid to touch it. So I'm referring to this strip along here. So we'll maintain the trees that are there, and again, augment, and so that you'll end up with at least one tree every 30 feet, like you would have street trees as defined in the zoning ordinance. We've also modified, just with the revision of the layout in the stormwater management area, we have landscaping at the entrance to provide a nice aesthetic entrance, welcome entrance into the subdivision. We've also shown street trees proposed along the entire roadway alignment on both sides of the road. That is one of the waivers that we are requesting. We're asking for one tree every 55 feet on the interior road layout, as opposed to one tree every 30 feet, which is what the subdivision regulations identify. With the lots being smaller, at one tree every 55 feet, we have one tree about every lot, is what it turns out to be. If you go to one to, every 30 feet, it just, in my opinion, it just gets too tight for the frontage of the lots and the amount of trees that you'd have with the driveways, et cetera. That's it on that. I'm gonna dare to go to another plan. While that's loading, so drainage, stormwater management is the grading plan is gonna come up next. So just real quick, I want to identify, if you've maybe noticed in the waiver letter, we have removed, there was a lot of discussion on the requested waiver of the Barnstable stormwater management permit. And I just want to be clear, what I had identified initially, and it's how it was proposed, was all we were asking for at that point in time was a waiver from the paper process. We were doing all the design in accordance with everything. We were just asking for a waiver from the piece of paper, because there's a paper process that we have to do that's, a fair amount of effort and cost. But based on the dialogue and comments that have been made, Mike agreed to remove that waiver, so that stormwater management permit waiver has been removed. So the design's still going to be the same, but we'll go through the actual stormwater management permit process with the town, do the paperwork so that an actual permit is issued. So if the plan ever loads, but hopefully you guys have some hard copies in front of you, we've provided, there are 4 stormwater management areas. There's 3 main stormwater management areas, which include 4 bays, which will be a vegetated 4-bay, and then we have underground, I went one too far. We have underground Cultec systems, they're chambers. So we have 1 here, 2, and 3. This is a vegetated 4-bay, these 3 locations here. So that's a slight depression, 2 to 3 feet deep. That provides pre-treatment for water quality. It's vegetated. Then the rectangles that you see, those are chambers. Those are all underground. You don't see those, and it's going to be it'll be a grass surface over it. So it'll be a nice, reasonably level surface. So it's kind of, a little bit of open space. We can't put a bunch of plants on top of it because we can't put plants on top of the chambers. So we have those 3 areas, and then we have 1 small area, just the way that we had to design the road profile. There's a small low spot here, and we couldn't get it pushed over to here based on elevations. So we're providing a small leach pit system here with catch basins, and we're providing a storm tech filter, which is an additional filter that takes care of pre-treatment and water quality. The design for this far exceeds the Barnstable requirements and DEP requirements from a quantity standpoint. These are designed, and it's based on the topography and how it's going to perform and what I felt it needed to do. We're retaining through the 100-year storm, so there's not going to be any discharge through the 100-year storm, whereas the town requires through the 25-year storm. And then the state is actually only the 2 and the 10-year storm, and then you just look at the 100-year storm to make sure that it's passed safely. But we're actually controlling and infiltrating through the 100-year storm with this design. The 3 4-bay areas that I mentioned, because they're 2 to 3 feet deep, they'll have, after a heavy rainfall, you'll have some water in those until they dewater themselves from for the pretreatment of the water quality. We're providing a fence around each of those. We've proposed a split rail fence that'll have black vinyl chain link on the split rail, which is a really nice look. I used to have a fence like that at my house, so that's what we propose around those. We think it'll be a nice aesthetic, and it keeps the 4 bays safe, so you don't have, people getting into the 4 bay areas. And then the utility plan. So we are providing, again, the utility layout, it's modified somewhat, but it's very similar to what you saw before. It's an 8-inch new water main system looped through the subdivision that ties in at both Great Marsh and at the end of Finney's Lane. And there's 3 new fire hydrants proposed, one in this area here, one over here, and one there. Again, as if ComFire has any comments on that, we'll obviously adjust fire hydrant locations, to the locations that they want to see. Then sewer main infrastructure will be installed as part of the project, obviously. This includes a 8-inch SDR35, which is a PVC pipe. It's all gravity collection, along with sewer manholes. And then the new sewer infrastructure will tie into the 8-inch stub that exists, that was brought to the 195 Finney's Lane, and then ties into the system, and then that's the new pump station right there, so you can see how close we are to that. As I had identified before, there's existing septic systems throughout the lot. I think there's 3 of them that total 7 bedrooms. Those will all be removed and abandoned properly. So that's a positive from a water quality standpoint. And then we have new electric and communication lines, and all that will be underground in the subdivision. And then additionally, which I'm going to just go right by because there's really not much to point out to, but there's road plans that were provided in this set. Those show the road profiles. Ultimately, when we get into construction, that's what you're seeing here. When we get into construction documents, we'll be adding the profiles of the utilities, sewer, water, et cetera. But then what I wanted you to see here is the typical lots. There you go. So this plan here just is a representative. We just selected 2 lots. This one is Pipestem, I think that's lot 5, and then that, I can't remember the lot number there. Was that 35, 33, 31? Thank you. But we just, again, this is just a representation of what you'll expect to see on each individual site. This approves the subdivision, right? So now once the subdivision's approved and the infrastructure is built, you now come in and you want to build a house, you do an individual site plan for each lot, and that gets submitted to the building department, and that's what they issue the building permit on. So this is just representing what you will see. I mean, these are the 2 style houses, the ranch and the Cape. Each lot will have a driveway that will support at least 2 cars, depending on some of the lots where the driveway is a little bit longer, you're going to be able to put more than 2 cars in. But so you'll have, paved parking for each lot. This represents kind of typical landscaping that would be provided. This represents the street tree that I identified previously. This is just a specimen tree that will be added to the lot, like a dogwood, flowering dogwood or something similar. And then some perimeter trees along the side and rear lot lines, like arborvitae, some type of evergreen to help with screening, and then some foundation plantings. And then additionally, each lot will have a dry well so that the roof runoff from each house is connected directly to a dry well on the lot, and that roof runoff is infiltrated right there at that leach pit. So that's to represent, what each lot will ultimately consist of. And I believe that's what I had. I mean, we can, obviously, after Andrew, any additional questions and comments and so forth, happy to answer those. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And I just wanted to just close our initial presentation with some of the other materials that we'd submitted in our supplemental submission. I include, as Matt alluded to it, you had requested more detail on the waivers. So We provided that to you. It's actually a reduced waiver list, as Matt mentioned. The stormwater and other waivers have been eliminated from that, but there is more detail there for you. There was also, in addition, there's some additional background or detail that Mr. Egan had submitted on the affordability beyond what he told you at the beginning, which, again, had been asked for. We submitted some proposed conditions for future consideration that came from other decisions that you have done, as well as Anna's staff report. And ultimately, at the end of this process, we're requesting that you also, and you don't have that yet, but you'll be signing, we'd ask you to sign the definitive subdivision plan, because you're standing in the stead of the planning board in this case. We're happy, as Matt said and Mr. Egan said, to answer all questions. All the members of the team are here today, but we wanted to do, since this is such a big difference from the first proposal, is we wanted to stop here, get your feedback on the revisions to the proposal. You might ask, the public, whatnot, and then we're also happy to answer any, detailed questions as we go on. But we just wanted to present here for that and hear your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Singer. How do you guys want to proceed? I have some questions and clarifications for Matt and others. But
I do too, but I'm wondering if it might be more useful to hear from the public.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'm
This
fine.
is a substantial change, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we appreciate the response to the feedback that was heard at the last hearings and making the updated plan. So yeah, let's our public comment remained open from the last hearing. So let's hear from different people of the public. If anyone wants to come up, name and address for the record.
Hi there. I'm Hillary Temple, and you may have remembered me from past meetings. I'm going to hand out a couple of handouts. This is from, this presentation is from me as an individual,
Thank you.
and then I have something from the Wicklocket Estates Association.
And can you just say your address into the record when you get back to the microphone, just so we put it in?
67 Bresner Lane. First of all, we'd like to say thank you to Mr. Egan for taking down the apartment building and replacing it with single-family homes. I think we all agree that we do need some affordable homes on the Cape for sure, and this will certainly make a positive impact in terms of the livability of the neighborhood and not losing our neighborhood to that three-story apartment house. So we do appreciate that. I'm speaking basically on one issue here, and that is the proposed entrance. This creates, one thing I want to comment on is in this redesign, there's a lot of attention paid towards the redesign, Finney's, Great Marsh, but there is nothing in the traffic study regarding the impacts of the entrance creating a four-way intersection with Juniper Road and our neighborhood. There's no impact study of that. There's nothing in the traffic study, and that's our biggest concern. Okay, the proposed entrance creates a four-way intersection at Juniper Road at Wicklocket Estates neighborhood, causing a cut-through. Safety issues, increased traffic flow, often at higher speeds as they cut through from Great Marsh to Finney's Lane. Our neighborhood roads are not secondary roads like Richardson or minor A roads like the proposed subdivision. We are minor B roads, very narrow, intended for very low volume residential use and no through traffic. Service vehicles and street parking on our roads often create one-lane traffic, putting the many walkers, kids on bikes, dog walkers, and joggers at risk already. Creating an intersection with a proposed new subdivision and an existing subdivision at Wicklocket Estates changes the existing subdivision. This creates a cut-through, hence allows for the existing subdivision to be guided by the existing Barnstable subdivision regulations. The intersection would also create unnecessary conflict points and an inadequate look back for the proposed subdivision as evidenced by their traffic study. This four-way intersection was created in the plans by shifting the paper road that was on the Great Marsh property to the east, making it align with Juniper Road. Note the GIS map. I think you can see it on the GIS map that I provided, how it was shifted. Okay. The developer's existing traffic study does not include the impacts to Juniper Road and the entire Aquacat Estates neighborhood and cut-through traffic that will most certainly occur. This is evidenced by the Route 28 detour onto Great Marsh that has been in effect due to the sewer expansion project, forcing traffic to cut through our neighborhood, speeding past many of us. Drivers are forced to decide between cutting through our neighborhood or waiting in a long line at Finney's Great Marsh intersection. Neighbors have seen backup since the detour began, extending past Point of Pines. And you'll see a photograph also that I've included with it that shows this one right here that shows a backup all the way to Juniper, but there have also been backups to Point of Pines. We propose that the developer shift the egress further to at least the existing entrance at 51 Great Marsh Road or further, thus offsetting the four-way intersection at Juniper, greatly limiting the cut-through traffic, safety issues, and hardships for the residents of the Aquacat Estates neighborhood. Shifting the egress away from Juniper will also allow a safer look-back for the proposed subdivision. Shifting the entrance to 51 Great Marsh or further creates no measurable hardship for the developer and mitigates traffic risks for our neighborhood. We have witnessed how dangerous four-way intersections can be, as Finney's Lane and Route 28 have had 46 accidents in recent years. Finney's Lane and Old Strawberry Hill Road have had so many that they had to implement blinking stop signs. I personally was nearly killed at that intersection a few years ago. Let's see if I can, okay. In addition to shifting and offsetting the egress away from Juniper, other mitigation efforts may be included but not limited to speed bumps, no through traffic, 30-mile thickly settled signage. Also, the developer is asking for a waiver to allow them to post 25 miles per hour in their minor A neighborhood. We would also like to consider this option for our neighborhood. Given the risks to our neighborhood, we think this intersection could and should be easily moved to 51 Great Marsh or further, where they have an existing entrance to the proposed subdivision. This would eliminate the four-way intersection and the majority of the cut-throughs, making us all safer. We have created a petition to this effect with nearly all interested parties in agreement. Signature sheets include residents of Pond Street, Bresner Lane, Juniper Road, Laurel Road, Lake Drive, Point of Pines Road, Great Marsh Road, Hayes Road, and Finney's Lane. All have expressed a strong desire to see the four-way intersection with our neighborhood eliminated. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Temple.
Thanks.
Okay, so this addresses the same issue. This is a petition that we created and gathered as many signatures as we were able to. Many residents, of course, haven't returned yet for their summers. But we got about 70 different people signing this, all very, very concerned about this. And the fact that there's been no studies studying this, we're completely against this intersection. The petition to the Barnstable Zoning Board of Appeals regarding proposed development on Great Marsh Road. We, the undersigned residents of Aquacat Estates neighborhood and surrounding areas, respectfully submit this petition in opposition to the proposed high-density development by Great Marsh Development Corp., led by Michael Egan on Great Marsh Road in Centerville. The proposed development consists of, I can skip that over, primary concerns are traffic and road safety. The development proposes a single primary egress onto Great Marsh Road, generating an estimated 340 daily vehicle trips. Of particular concern, the proposed egress aligns directly with Juniper Road, the entrance to Aquacat Estates. This effectively creates a new intersection and encourages cut-through traffic into our residential neighborhood. The roads, measuring only 16 to 19 feet in width, are used primarily to provide access to abutting residential lots and which is not intended for use by through traffic, per Barnstable Subdivision Regulations, Chapter 801, Article 2, General Provisions 801-3. Residents are already experiencing the effects of increased traffic from detours on Route 28 due to sewer construction. These detours force traffic onto Great Marsh Road, causing cut-through traffic through the Wocket neighborhood to avoid the backup at Finney's Great Marsh intersection. Observations on our neighborhood chat. 8 cars flying by while walking my dog. What's happening with all this traffic? Is this what's to come when the subdivision goes in? I had to grab my dog and jump to the side of the road. This proposal would significantly worsen those already dangerous conditions. From a traffic engineering perspective, aligning a new high-volume access point directly opposite an existing neighborhood entrance creates what is effectively a 4-way intersection. This configuration increases conflict points, turning movements, and driver decision complexity, all of which are associated with higher accident rates and unsafe conditions. By shifting the egress away from Juniper Road, the design would function more like an offset intersection or separated access point. This reduces the likelihood of drivers using Juniper Road as a cut-through route, minimizes left-turn conflicts, discourages shortcutting behavior driven by convenience. It also preserves the intended function of Juniper Road as a low-volume residential street, consistent with Barnstable roadway standards for narrow streets that are not designed to accommodate through traffic. Our second point was pedestrian safety, lack of infrastructure. There are no sidewalks along Great Marsh Road. The proposed development, this creates serious risks for children walking to and from school bus stops, residents walking, jogging, or walking pets. Recent incident following a snowstorm highlighted these dangers when middle school students were forced to walk on plowed snowbanks dangerously close to traffic. One child slipped beneath a stopped vehicle. Without sidewalks or pedestrian protections, this development places future residents and current neighbors at unacceptable risk. I'm going to avoid the emergency access since you have identified that you will not be having that access at this point. And, okay. Great Marsh is a scenic residential corridor. This high-density development increases scale and intensity inconsistent with the surrounding area and alters the character and livability of the community. Our request for action, we respectfully urge the Barnstable Zoning Board of Appeals to deny the project as currently proposed or require substantial modifications, including relocation of the primary project egress on Great Marsh Road so that it is shifted approximately 3 houses closer to Finney's Lane, rather than directly aligned with Juniper Road. Relocation of the emergency egress from Finney's Lane to Richardson Road and make it a secondary access, lessening the impact on Great Marsh Road and the 2 Finney intersections. A new traffic study conducted during the fall or spring during the school year that includes impacts to the roads associated with Aquacat Estates Species Association, Juniper Road, Lake Drive, Pond Street, Bresner Lane, etc. Comprehensive traffic mitigation measures, installation of sidewalks, pedestrian safety infrastructure, reevaluation of project density to better align with neighborhood character. In conclusion, this proposal in its current form presents serious and well-documented concerns related to traffic safety, pedestrian risk, emergency access, and neighborhood compatibility. We ask the board to prioritize safety and well-being of current and future residents in its decision. And then I made copies for each of you of the people on the list. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Temple.
Jeff Temple, 67 Bresner Lane. I have to apologize, there will be some repeat in some of the things just testified. So as I did in February, I did some just review of the recent project narrative that was turned in and just wanted to make some comments to that and clarify a few things. And I'm working off the revised project narrative that was turned in. And the third paragraph talks about the 35 new homes and made some comments there saying the applicant letter to ZBA in 2/6/26 stated there will be a 10-foot landscape buffer along Great Marsh Road. I'm not sure if that has been reapplied in the waivers, but reviewing the plan sets, which I did in detail, the new drawing C3.2 shows an 8-foot buffer. So I'm not sure if that's been clarified somewhere else. In addition, there's some confusion. It says in the plan set only 2 trees are shown added at this time. And I understand, there has to be a lot of field construction. But they're actually placed to block an existing driveway, basically where Hillary has been discussing where that new entrance would go in. There's also discussion between proposed conditions and other places where it says in the field, the contractor will decide where to put a tree if there's a gap. But previous testimony said there'll be one every 30 feet. So again, we need some clarification for you. What is that? Is there one every 30 feet or is there one being placed in gaps, and who determines that? Since the beginning, the DPU has requested a coordinated planting and tree removal plan. So my question on that, is this that plan now? So DPW can go and review, that plan to decide and give you the input that you need. The second page, second paragraph down, there are a couple things discussed on stormwater and safety. First of all, on stormwater, although it's really positive to see a reduction in the stormwater because there's a lot of impermeable surface in this project. But with the additional impermeable roofing and driveways, the reduction amounts to be about the same. It's about 2,900 square feet, or about a half a house lot less than before. And that was conservative because I didn't add in the other property off Richardson. But more concerning, so that's good that there is some reduction. But more concerning is the comment, built to standard acceptable to the town. Now, what I did hear tonight, so I could be behind on this, is that they will get a full stormwater permit. And why I think that's important, because down the road, there's failures, the developer moves on, there's HOAs, and it gives the town some leverage if there's a permit to control any failures or issues with that development. Some notes there, you notice the drain pits in every house, which is taking water off the roofs, and the Cultec filtration systems. Some of these systems require a lot of maintenance, especially the filter systems. So I don't know, as this gets developed in these conditions, again, who is taking care of all that? Who's maintaining that in the future so the town doesn't have to get involved and water goes off-site or whatever. So again, will the stormwater management system be reviewed through the proper planning permitting process for design, operation, and maintenance? Will it be fully permitted, papered, to ensure compliance with the town requirements as a condition? And I think that was answered. Okay, discussing safety, public safety, which is the big concern of ours. In the paragraph, it talks about the revised plan provides for safe access for residents. So I wasn't sure what that meant compared to previous plans, what has changed. So just reviewing the notes from February, because obviously there's a whole new design, and we haven't seen, a lot of the questions answered from the February discussion. So I'm going to highlight a couple again. So we did talk about the one small section of sidewalk in front of the pump house, which is great. My question is, who's responsible? Who's maintaining that in that busy intersection when it's all snow like we had this winter? Is that up to this group, or is the town taking that over? And basically, unfortunately, that leads to a crosswalk that leads to a package store across the street. And not the developer's fault, but all the sidewalks are on that south side of 28. So our public safety concerns are there's no access road or pedestrian walkway or bike path, out to Richardson. Now, I've heard anecdotally that Richardson is off the table and isn't going to be considered. I'm not sure why, or whether the facts I've heard are true or not, but even taking a driveway access, which out there would lessen the impact on Great Marsh, the applicant's property intersects what I call the commercially wide part of Richardson, not the narrow part like all the other roads in the neighborhoods. It's about 25 feet from there right out, and with the lights just down the road, then, people can head west without a lot of interference. But short of that, a bike path or a sidewalk so people in this neighborhood can get out and get to the malls. Both malls are on the north side of 28. The town plan, of which I went to a number of meetings in the last couple of years, calls for, connecting neighborhoods in Barnstable with sidewalks. Unfortunately, we didn't see one get put in on Finney's with all the great work. And you see a lot of people on bikes and trying to walk, trying to get to their workplaces. But here's a perfect chance to add a bike path or sidewalk in that Richardson property. There's a 40-foot right-of-way. Both property owners have 20, and it's being shared right now, the driveway. But wouldn't that be a great thing for a brand-new neighborhood being designed in town to have that bike path, walkway, so families, people can walk over, get groceries at those two malls without going across, going down, and there are no crosswalks in front of the Bell or the Centerville Mall. So basically what I'm saying, without some kind of access out to Richardson, we basically are landlocking the residents to vehicle access out to what they need to do. Another public safety item is the project residents' children. At this point, from what I can see from the plans, are forced to walk in the main entrance, which is 20 feet, which now has all plantings, which looks great on the landscape plan, but where are they waiting for the bus? Now, maybe somebody can tell you that the school buses will go into a new development like that. I don't know that fact. But if not, again, why isn't there some short section of sidewalk from that first turn in the neighborhood out to the entrance so kids can wait safely for the bus? And most significantly, there is no change in the plans to relocate the project entrance exit, which has been placed directly across from the neighborhood entrance to the north, which Hillary spoke to. This causes what's called an adverse public safety impact. This four-way intersection, although basic engineering 101 would say your building developments put it in intersections, there are reasons for that, but that's what's not consistent in this whole area. I think a letter got submitted to you this week, and somebody actually listed the amount of intersections between Finney's and Great Marsh and all that. There was a staggering amount that aren't four-way intersections from any of these neighborhoods that access Finney's. Now, in most cases, you'd say that's a positive to have that intersection. In this case, it's not. Because what I'll show you in a second here, I'll show you the map and we'll talk about that again. Okay, the next paragraph down talked about traffic impact analysis. Again, we testified back in February that we didn't think that the traffic study was comprehensive. The traffic impact study did not state, as says in this paragraph in your letter to you, that the development would not result in significant safety impacts. The study does not say that anywhere that I can find. The revised plan, based on the applicant's traffic analysis trip generation methodology, results in the following changes with 36 homes. Whether this means a lot or not, but I thought it was interesting because it does impact what we're talking about, the increased traffic. Daily trips on the previous plan, 344. Revised plan, 340. Net change, 4 trips per day. A Saturday, 348 previous, revised plan 342. 6 trips per day. On a Sunday, previous plan 298, revised plan 305, net change 7 more trips per day. And that's using the exact worksheets that were provided in the traffic impact study, just adjusting the numbers to the new amount of units. And the type of units it's called the LU 210 worksheet. So summing up a little bit, recap since the last hearing, please, as you're going through your discussions and everything, please reference the significant amount of comments in the feedback that were provided in February. We don't want to waste your time and go through them all again because we haven't heard much back on it, but please go back to some of those documents and review. The review at the time and the many resulting questions about the project have not really been answered yet, but there's a new design, so we'll have to wait this out and see how your design progresses and your departments get back to you with input on them. One more point, the traffic impact study, as I said, we don't believe it's comprehensive. It was well done for what was asked for, but it didn't include, it says in the initial request, look at with local knowledge, look at the adjoining neighborhoods and everything, and we don't feel like that happened. There's other items in the study, as far as this entrance where it's placed, that stated that, the entrance, when you come out of the intersection and you're looking left out of the development because of the landscaping there, and the applicant only owns so much property, that the sight lines were regarded as adequate. That's a term in traffic studies. They weren't desirable. So again, moving the road down would there's another benefit to that, would help the sight lines as children are trying to wait there for the bus and cars come around that corner on a road that, per the traffic study, on average, people are traveling 38 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. So that needs to be reviewed as well. The placement of the current entrance to the project has created an adverse diversion or convenient cut-through safety issue due to the visible queuing or stacking at the Finney's Great Marsh intersection. In other words, whether you're coming out of the new development, you can look right, you can see 2, 3, 4 cars, somebody's going to shoot straight ahead. I'm respectfully requesting the following as part of the review process by the ZBA: to relocate the project entrance on Great Marsh for the many reasons stated. If you just look at figure 1 that I presented you, it's pretty clear with the red line that you can see the cut-through opportunity that takes you right over to Finney's, and you can totally circumvent the Finney's Great Marsh intersection. The second figure I gave you was a conceptual swap of the lots to provide that entrance moving down, not just offset a little bit, so it causes a problem with turns and everything, but a few hundred feet down the road with no lot loss to the applicant. It's almost an identical swap could happen there. Finally, also this eliminates the Juniper new neighborhood adverse cut-through safety impacts. It improves the sight lines to the west from adequate to desirable, especially with the speed that we just talked about. It improves the driver awareness as you come down Great Marsh and you come around a curve. It's not long before you're right on where this entrance is going to be. And seeing kids, there's going to be probably a number of kids in this development waiting for a bus, unless, I don't know, school buses are going to be going in the development. They don't go into ours, so I don't know the answer to that. It was mentioned in February meetings, this is the same headlight sweeps at night, cars coming out, whether it's on Juniper, there's 2 houses on the corner there, they would get that same nuisance headlight sweep, so it'd be the same in either location. And then finally, agrees with the applicant's testimony in the early hearings of not creating a direct cut-through in the proposed development. In other words, the applicant did not want Richardson, felt like it would not be good to have a direct cut-through, so we're saying it's creating a very similar situation for another development. So, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Temple.
Hi, my name is Betty Ludke from the Village of Hyannis. I wanted to follow those two speakers because I also want to speak about roads. It seems to be a really important aspect of this design. But first, let me touch on something else that the developer talked about. I would really like, all parties to this to focus on Commonwealth builders. As a gateway city, we are the only municipality on Cape Cod that is allowed to use the Commonwealth Builders programs. It would provide substantially more opportunities for ownership at those AMIs that we need here. So anything that can be done to further the use of Commonwealth builders should be done to further that. So thank you for mentioning the Commonwealth Builders. Right now, we only have one Commonwealth Builders program going. It's being built by the Housing Assistance Corporation in downtown Hyannis on the corner of Stevens and North Street. However, it's condominiums, a 4-story condominium. And nothing will ever compare to a single-family home. And that's what we want at our affordability range. So again, please focus anything we can do to get Commonwealth Builders applied to this project. The next piece is the roads. I really like what the speakers have said about the roads. I absolutely love the idea of the bike and walking cut through on Richardson. A lot of times we design mostly for cars and then we figure people are going to act like cars. But people don't act like cars at all. It would be horribly inconvenient to have to walk down there and then walk down Richardson, let alone dangerous, I would say. And we're trying in Barnstable to be a more walkable city, a bikeable city. We're spending an enormous amount of money, as well as state and federal money on bike paths and bike connectivity. This is one of those areas where you have incredible shopping, restaurants, potential jobs right over there in those shopping plazas. And to have that walking and biking connectivity, absolutely, that's a great idea from the previous speaker. I would really like to see you explore that. Also his point, and I remember I spoke last time, school buses. Absolutely, you see them every morning if you're, again, I think your traffic study was done during the summer. So good points on that, the traffic study. Children, moms, dads, whoever's waiting with them, they wait at the side of the road. You have nowhere for them to wait. They're not going to wait in the bushes there. So it's true. You have to think about people and walking and how they use this, not just cars. And to get my point about roads, I've seen this too frequently because it's been allowed to happen in the town of Barnstable. We actually encouraged it by our regulatory and our policy structure. A lot of the subdivisions in the 70s and 80s in particular were allowed to build roads that were not built to the standards of a public road. And we've heard a lot of people talking about the nature of the road opposite, that it is a private road, it's a narrow road, it's built to a different standard. And I know these policies and regulations don't exist right now, but because you're so forward-thinking on this, I mean, this is incredible. This is what we really need here in Barnstable. I'd like you to be even more forward-thinking, work with Jim Kupfer, our Director of Planning, work with our DPW, and please bring forward roads that come up to the public standard. Because you drive, there's another 40B, I won't name it by name, but it's fairly recent in Hyannis, and it's very nice. It has the buried utilities, all these kind of things that we really like. But gosh darn it, the roads are crap. And because they're allowed to be built as crap. And they shouldn't be deteriorating at this rate, okay? So I really ask you to do this. The town council can vote to accept roads as public ways. And perhaps this could be an example for others to emulate. I know you don't have to do it because we don't have the framework in place, but I'm asking you to look at it, to pencil it out, to talk to the DPW, to talk to our Director of Planning, and see what we can do. And to the point we've discussed earlier, and the speakers have said so beautifully, some sidewalks in there. Let's do some sidewalks, maybe one side of the street, and then the connectivity. So thank you very much. All in all, I'm just so impressed with what you've done. I absolutely love it. I love Commonwealth Builders. I want us as a town, as a municipality, to take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Ledke. Anyone else? Come on up.
My name is Nicola Sidney. I live at 132 Great Marsh Road. I have a few different questions. My main one being is, in the first plans there was a playground. We've just completely got rid of that. And there's nowhere for children to play. The size of the yard is incredibly small. There's no path, you expect the children to just play in the road. They can't. There's nowhere for these kids to go. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and almost every day I walk Great Marsh Road to Juniper, Point of Pines, around there, and I can't even walk on the correct side of the road that this is being built on because of the curve between Hayes and Point of Pines. People fly around that corner. And if anyone were to walk on that side of the road, you would probably be hit. Which is the correct side of the road that you should be walking on? So if you're adding all these houses and these people that are going to speed, because that's what people do, you have an even more increased risk of people getting hit by cars, especially children, people with dogs. There's nowhere else for us to go. The traffic and the construction that has happened or is happening on Old Stage Road, as previous people have mentioned, is causing backups all the way to where I live, which is way past Hayes Road, all the way to the conservation site. And again, they're going to use Juniper as a cut-through because it's the easiest thing to do. They've now found out they can use Great Marsh as a cut-through. So they're going to use both of those as cut-throughs, which just creates even more potential for injuries to people walking or anything like that. I am unaware why you would approve any waivers. That doesn't make sense to me. The rule is there for a reason. Just because you've built so many houses on a plot that you can't stick to the waiver, I don't understand that. Under the sticking with the village design, we don't have 36 houses on this amount of lot. That doesn't stick with our village design. There's just no room to do anything. My main concern is the families that will be moving into here. They're obviously geared to people in my generation looking for first-time homes. I understand the affordability of it, but there's just no breathing room to do anything in this lot. So my main concern is, where are these kids going to play? What are these kids going to do? Where are they going to play? In a road? Like, it's just, you're not thinking of children again, you're thinking of cars. There's no room for a bus stop. So my main concern is, what are these children going to do? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Friel. I live at number 60 Richardson Road. First of all, I do appreciate the developer's movement in the right direction as it relates to the elimination of the apartment building. The density that was previously sought was not reasonable given the site limitations. The new plan, however, is significantly dense by comparison with the neighborhood around at least my home on Great Marsh Road. When you look at Gina Court, when you look at Merrick Road, when you look at Jacqueline Court and the houses on Richardson Road, all of the homes in that area only total 27. We still see no off-site roadway improvements planned for Great Marsh Road and Finney's Lane. I think it's a major public safety concern, but again, I think that the developer in good faith has made a significant proposal change here. The development, at least my calculations, informal calculations, is going to create, even with this reduced amount of units, 160,000 car trips a year. When you figure 2 cars per unit times 3 trips in and 3 trips out, and on a calendar of 365 days a year. And this doesn't include any of the service personnel. It doesn't include any vendors coming into to or from the house, Amazon, the post office, the plumber, the electrician, etc. There's a lot of activity generated from a site that's proposed to be developed as this is. The revised proposal's a big improvement, but it remains too dense and lacks sufficient roadway improvements off of the site, which it will exacerbate the poor conditions of traffic and roadway conditions that exist there now. Finally, the Richardson Road residents and the other intersecting streets, all of the people that I've talked to anyway, are firmly opposed to any egress that would include Richardson Road. When you start to look at the nursing home, the bakery, the business offices, the cut-through traffic from the Bell Tower Mall, you have 2 driveways and Gina Court that all conflict in this one offset intersection as raised by the traffic engineer earlier, which is not an optimal condition to build upon, nor would it be something you want to make worse. So we cannot handle the traffic and the conflicting number of vehicles and uses in that neighborhood today, let alone adding one more conflicting component to it. We do support the request of the realignment of the Juniper Road and Great Marsh development as was described by the neighbors. And we ask that the proposal, maybe another look at the number of units in this residential setup, the residential components, the way this is configured now, may be a good solution in the end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Lozon. I live in Marston's Mills, but I work at Harbor Point, which is a memory care community. We have 65 memory care residents that live there. My concern is the proposal of possibly using Richardson Road as an egress, that driveway. I think the connectability for like a path or a bike path is a good idea. However, crossing over Richardson to get into the Casual Gourmet or the Bell Tower Mall, I mean, it's not really as walkable as everybody thinks it is. It's still very dangerous on Richardson Way as far as traffic, especially now with construction. I also wonder during the construction phase, where is the staging going to be for all of the construction equipment? I also ask if you are going to build a bike or a walkway down that driveway on Richardson, that you do fence it. It is not fenced like Mr. Egan thought. There's a partial fence, but that's it. I would also like to see a fence on the back of that property because it abuts our parking lot, which is going to be a great draw for extra parking for the dense community. Maybe children wanting to play because it's a big wide open space, to that woman's point, riding their bikes over there. We have a lot of traffic in and out. We have ambulances, contractors, employees. The parking lot is not a place that I would want to see somebody walking through or parking or playing. So those are some of my concerns. So hopefully you'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we did receive, oh, come on up. Mhm.
Hello, my name is Gail Shamsi, and I'm at 251 Finney's Lane, which is the corner of Great Marsh and Finney's Lane, which is roughly below that little box there on the left side of the drawing. I think, it's a very dense plan, 6.7 acres is not a lot of land. And anyone who knows the land knows, except for the few houses or, you know, maybe a shack or two on Great Marsh, it essentially looks like a forest, a very tall tree area. And I don't see where much is being done for the abutters on either side other than, you know, Great Marsh, as far as any trees or greenery that maybe you're adding about 12 houses in there on the west side and another 3 or 4 on the other side. So just a consideration, a request to consider that there are abutters on all sides who are going to see this very drastically.
Thank you.
How are you today? Eric Schwab. I'll be brief. I know you've indulged me in the past, and I want you to know I appreciate it greatly. I don't understand how you can have more than 4 houses per acre. I mean, where does it say you can put these many houses in this small an area? I mean, I would think that the maximum number of houses you could have be around 24. So, you know, if it's possible to have more than 4 houses per acre, I would ask that you document that somehow. I mean, is it required? I mean, you have to accept this? I mean, it would seem to me that a 5,000 square foot lot is about the minimum. We have a few in Hyannis, not even that many. I'm on a 10,000 square foot lot, and it's crowded. You know, we have floodlights pointing into our bedroom windows from the neighbors with their trucks. I'd like to also call your attention to the April 8th letter from the DPW. Did you guys get a chance to look at that? It is inadequate. There's no other word to describe it. There's no discussion about sewer connections. There's no plural. And as we saw in New England Development, there was an effort made there to pay one connection fee for 300 apartments. So I think it's very important that you get in writing what this developer is going to pay in the way of a sewer connection fee. The rock bottom minimum should be about $360,000. If you consider that pump station, which he's clearly benefiting from, cost us $2 million, I would suggest to you that the fair price for a sewer connection fee is $2 million. I also think that you need to challenge the DPW on where this water is going to go. There is no plan to dispose of excess effluent from the sewer plant. There's no plan. If you can go to the state said, best of luck, work it out. But there is no plan to actually distribute additional effluent. There seems to be an unending willingness to accept effluent, but there is no plan to actually get rid of it. We don't have an outfall pipe. We don't have sufficient infiltration capacity. It's bubbling up in the ground around Pleasant Hill currently, and they want to pave that. So you have to look at not just the collection system and the capacity of the collection system or the capacity of the pump station. You have to look at how this effluent is being distributed after it's been processed, because there is no plan for that. And you really need to hold the line here. It's too dense. Shouldn't be more than 4 houses per acre. Even that's crowded. And the DPW needs to clarify the cost of the connection and how they're going to process the additional effluent. Thank you very much, and I really want you to know that I speak for everyone when I say we really appreciate your efforts. You've done a fabulous job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schwab.
Good evening, guys. Heather Swenson, 110 Nice Neck Road East. I don't know if it's even something that the town can put a stipulation on, but I'm just wondering, out of all of these units, are they being offered to Barnstable residents first? Are they being offered to only Cape residents, or is it open? Based on 36 houses, you're looking at potentially, even if it was just 2 children per house, 72 children added just in this one development, 12 grades. That's an additional 6 kids per grade that we're adding to our schools. Are the schools ever questioned on our capacity? This is one project. We have how many projects coming down the road? What is this doing to our schools and their classroom size? Also, I just want to point out, it has nothing really with one development, but I live on Lake Wequaquet, and we are currently a good 18 inches, if not 20 inches below water level off of my dock right now, and that's how we're starting our spring. And in the 5 miles that it took me to drive here today, I passed 3 signs by the town, by Barnstable, that said that we're in a significant drought. So I just ask you, with all this development that continues to just be coming down the pipe, is water has to be a concern. Without water, there is not life. So thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Swenson.
Good evening. I know most of you. My name's Larry Moore, and I live in Cotuit. And this has been, first of all, this came on somewhat short notice, but I know from the way you've conducted things before that there's going to be more hearings and more discussions about this. The preparation that some of the people did tonight was amazing. Was outstanding, especially the first 2. They really came prepared to the point that they had so much detail that I don't know where they found it all. But more importantly, I think the emotions are things that are kind of turning the cycle. For instance, Nikki Sidney's comments were outstanding. She really brought things in front of you for you to consider. There's been a tendency, in my conservation years, there were many times when projects were presented and they seemed to be in compliance with every dot and every crossing of a T. And they said, well, therefore, if they do that, we have to approve it. That should not be your criteria, because sometimes just meeting the criteria of a code or a regulation should not be your guiding point. Is this necessary? Why here? Why at this particular location? That's one of the things that troubles me. I live in Cotuit, but I did live in Centerville for 9 years, but I consider this a Barnstable Cape Cod project. It's something that you as a board, and a very good board, very well prepared and conducted, needs to really look at it objectively and subjectively. That's a tough combination. There's so many different things that have been presented. I'm a big picture person right now. A lot of the detail here has been so precise that where do we go with it? One of the things that caught my eye is that the entrance off of Great Marsh Road, can 2 cars pass each other? Is there enough room there? What if a big truck is coming in and a car is trying to come out? Is there enough room there? Is it even safe to do it? I don't know. I don't see anything to that capacity. Is it a one-way road or is it a 2-way road? But that's the little details. That's not what we really have to look at. Another matter, there's 2 things about water that need to be considered. It's been discussed about lack of drinking water or lack of water in the environment. But where's all the water coming from? I would think that probably COM has a lot to do with that. And I don't know whether Tim is here tonight. I didn't look back and see. He's not here. But anyway, I'd like to hear what COM's going to have to say eventually, because they should have a big say in this. And I think would encourage you for the next meeting to invite not just the director of COM, but other people that work for them. I'm not going to cover a lot much more, but Jake, I'm going to write up some comments. I'm going to submit them to you, and then that'll build on that for the next session. And I'm pretty confident you're going to have more than one session. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Hi, my name is Jim O'Connor. I live on 117 Great Marsh Road. I don't want to cover what everybody else already has, but there is a great concern for traffic. In the morning time, regardless of the detour, I can barely take a right out of my own driveway, and I live right across from Hayes Road. And on that radius, the traffic is coming so quickly, a lot of times I have to cross the yellow line to take a right. And I don't know how vehicles are going to leave that, taking a left or a right, without creating a problem. And if there is a four-way intersection there, it is going to back up Pat's Richardson Road every day. And also, I see people cutting through Juniper every day because of the construction, but that's actually very common to happen. And what nobody's talking about, if you're coming up Finney's Lane at the end of the day, people aren't waiting to take a right on Great Marsh Road. They're taking a right on Pond Street and cutting through that neighborhood. And so that's a big concern for the neighbors in that area. And there is going to be a lot of children on bikes. I agree with that. They're going to be walking down to the conservation area. They're going to be walking down to the beach. How are they going to do that safely? You take your life in your hands walking down Great Marsh Road now. I'm not opposed to housing at all. You look around the Cape, we do need housing, but I'm also looking at the density. There's 5.5 houses per acre. Isn't 3 more reasonable? And it would certainly reduce the traffic in that neighborhood. The traffic impact is going to be terrible coming out of that neighborhood. And the water department was mentioned. We have bans on water all the time. We haven't heard from COMM about adequate water for the area. I haven't heard anything from the fire department. We're going to speak about the fire department. I haven't heard anything from the fire department. We haven't heard anything from the police department. So these are all concerns that I have, living on Great Marsh Road, and how difficult it is year-round to pull in and off of Great Marsh Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, Nolan O'Melia, 18 Gina Court. Just to piggyback on what Mr. Friel said, obviously myself and my neighbors have talked about this. We're obviously in opposition to any kind of egress out to Richardson. Just in the past couple of years with the development above Bell Tower, we've seen a huge increase in traffic over there. My wife and I walk with our dog every day, plan to walk with our child this summer down there. There's no real safe way to do it. We're fortunate to have the conservation area to cut through the woods, but just that stretch on that corner by Hayes, it's very, very dangerous, right? Great Marsh Road is probably one of the top 5 roads in the town that the police department fields complaints for speeding motor vehicles. I believe, I forget who it was, someone referenced that the average speed on that road is 38 miles an hour in a posted 30-mile-an-hour zone. My concerns would be public safety in regards to what the police department or the fire departments plan to do in increase in staffing, right? Something of this density, 36 more units, it's going to be a great detriment on both of those agencies, right? Right now, as we stand here today, there's 3 cops responsible for 5 villages in the outer sectors of this town: Centerville, Osseo, Marston's Mills, Cotuit, and West Barnstable. You know, you put 36 more units, 9 of which will be 40B. You've seen a huge influx in police and fire activity in these 40B developments. You know, what's that going to do to the rest of the residents? I know Chief Hill plans on adding staffing to Comm Fire Department, but that's not something that's been approved yet. That's not something they have, right? There's 3 firefighters at Centerville right now. That's 1 ambulance call, and that entire village is without anybody in that station. So those would be my current concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So we did receive 5 additional comments. The DPW comments were put into public comment. Not sure if that's really the right place for them, but there was a comment that just came in today from them. There were some photos submitted. There was a letter from Tara Lewis at 77 Bresner Lane. And there was a letter from Chris Gregory and Peter and Julie Badot. And I believe that was it. Was there anything else, Anna, that came in at a day or no? Okay. Okay. Boards, how would you like to proceed? Attorney Singer, did you want to respond to any of that, or do you want us to make our comments? And okay. Manny, do you want to start, or?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank you.
Make sure your microphone's on.
I think this proposal reflects significant, meaningful changes, that addresses the concerns that the neighbors, the community has expressed. So appreciate that. And it feels like we're at the beginning of this process again, unfortunately. You mentioned that you would be going through site plan review, and the role that this board plays, as I understand it, in the 40B is sort of quarterbacking, but requiring input from all of the subject matter experts of the other departments. So it seems to me, I heard you say, Attorney Singer, that you would be going through site plan review. It would be useful for us to get the benefit of the input from all those departments before we arrive at a decision. I saw this comment from the DPW. They have questions that I think you need to respond to, so that when we get to the point where we have to make a decision, as we're required to, because I don't think it's discretionary. I think the statute actually requires us to seek input from all the boards. So I don't know if you want to address that. One, the site plan review, are you willing, will you be going through site plan review? And will we have the benefit of the input from all the departments before we address some of these issues?
Well, with all due respect, I disagree that we're starting over. You have, the supplemental submission was sent out to town departments. Town departments can comment or not comment. You got a comment from the DPW.
Yeah, but you sent it a week ago.
Yeah. What Mr. Eddy noted about site plan review, in his, because I didn't say it before he did, but we discussed it, is that we are not proposing to go back to site plan review now. What we are proposing to do is do site plan review again informally before the construction stage, which is what you would normally do. With a 40B, preliminary plans are all an applicant has to submit. In this case, you have plans that are significantly ahead of what's legally required for a board to act on a 40B. And so again, as far as there's been a lot of discussion about 40B, you're not the quarterbacks. You're it. I mean, well, I guess quarterback in that sense, but you are the board. You're charged with reviewing and approving. You solicit comments from the town departments, as you know very correctly. You didn't have a lot, I think, or you had some at the beginning. Some of the departments hadn't responded, and I guess they still haven't. That's not something we can force, we can do. And so we want to, work with the board, but we also believe that, what you see on this plan is a dramatic working with the board.
I agree, and thank you. And that's why I wanted to start by thanking the applicant. This addresses a lot of issues. The density's gone down, so it may very well be that all of the concerns that those departments will have, not all, some have been addressed. But part of the reason I said we're starting all over is we had input from the gentleman who just spoke. In the early stages, we had input from the fire department. Does this proposal present different issues? I'm not an expert. I couldn't answer that, but I would like to hear from the fire department.
Well, Mr. Eddy told you that, and you have the plans in your file, that the turning template plan for the fire department works. He designed it to work. So this meets the safety. As far as traffic, not only do you have a traffic impact study from VHB, you also have a detailed comment letter from the traffic department at the Cape Cod Commission.
You're making my point. Each of those issues, I think, because we're really representing these other departments, I think we need to hear from them. I mean, the removal of the emergency access, I would like to hear the fire department's perspective on that. Again, it could be because the density's gone down. I'd be guessing. I say it could be. I'm not the expert. The point being that, DPW has raised some issues. There's some open questions. I think those need to be addressed before it comes to us. I think each of the departments who weighed in last time with the original proposal, perhaps it was hyperbole for me to say that we're starting all over. I take that back. Point taken. It's not brand new, I take it. But it seems to me that this proposal could raise issues that are different and distinct from the original. And we had the benefit of the input from the various departments last time. All I'm suggesting is, and maybe I misunderstood Mr. Eddy, when you said he was going through site plan review, I made a note of that. I said, good. Then we'll have the benefit of hearing from the various departments on their areas of expertise.
Well, and what he was saying was during the post-permit, during the construction phase, just to clarify what Matt was saying and what we were suggesting. However, to your point, Anna sent out the revised plan and granted last week, as requested. You know, it's been sent out to all the departments. That, it's beyond our control. If the departments
Understood.
are going to respond, they're going to respond. But that's on the town now. You know, we've
Could I
submitted
also-
everything.
Could I also
Yeah.
add, too, I would just say, you know, the original proposed submission, which the departments did comment on, received more comments, and they've had that for a long time now. This is actually, you know, the layout, you know, the lot configuration for the single-family lots along Great Marsh, all very similar, right? Road circulation, road layout is almost identical. The only change is where the parking lot was eliminated and the multifamily building was eliminated. So from a technical department standpoint review, what they reviewed before, this is just less impact. I would agree, the one comment, which, and I'll reach out to Captain Hill on this, the emergency, the secondary access, just to confirm that they're okay without having that. But this is, the comments that were received before, if anything, it would just be less comments. This is less dense. The layout aspect is, you know, what they looked at before, this is very similar, and it's just less dense. So I think, and I understand what your points are, but I think that that's important to consider. And
Like I said, I just thinking about it in terms of the reduction in density, I probably agree with you. But I think the role of this board, and it's not discretionary in the statute. I take your point too. We can't force them to respond, but we need to have input, as we did in the first go around, from these various teams on. And thanks to DPW for their comments, and they have some questions that I think as we progress here, we'll get your responses to. So.
Well, and just, you know, we read the DPW letter, and many of them are very good questions, logical questions. They're not questions, several of them, and I'll turn to Matt for this, but they're not questions, a lot of which you would answer now. They're construction period.
I mean, they're final construction documents. What I would say, you know, the comments by DPW are very typical, but, you know, sidewalk aspect, striping, stop line striping, et cetera. Their main comments are, you know, us providing the detail of calculations for stormwater management, which is very typical. We do that all the time. I think, as we discussed, a condition of approval is that we obtain a stormwater management permit from the town. So we have to address all of their comments. It's, you know, to get into the weeds on all of that right now to then come back to this board and to go through all that. DPW is going to handle that. It's going to be a stormwater management permit, and they're not going to issue a permit until we address everything that needs to be addressed. So, and that's really, I think, you know, Matt Robel's letter, those were the main points of what my office needs to prepare for calculations, which we've done. It's just, you know, it's a lot of effort, and we spun this around in a reasonably short amount of time on the changes and all. That we will, you know, get to them. But again, they will have that, they will review it, and it won't be approved until they're happy with it, and we need that permit before we can start to do anything. And that would be a condition of this board, right? That would be a condition of approval, stormwater management permit, just like having a sewer connection permit, et cetera.
They'd all be
And
conditions.
they're not asking for, there's not waiver, you're not asking waivers specific to any of the items that
Correct.
DPW put. There are not waivers associated with what is written there. So they're not asking for us to waive any of those items. I mean, I think the key is where we're looking for waivers, to make sure that, they're following what is required under town.
I understood, and I think it's an important distinction to maybe state again that you're seeking this board to approve the subdivision plan.
Correct.
Not the construction of the individual units. I get the distinction, and there's lots that goes into the specific approvals for construction and all that. It wasn't clear to me from reading the DPW letter that they were actually focusing, as you say, at the construction specificities. Zoom out and think about approval of the subdivision. Are there concerns that some of these other departments will have? Point being, this is not our last meeting. I don't mean overstating this, okay? We've asked, we've made the request. We'll hear from, hopefully, the fire department, the police department. all of which, by the way, I expect, given the reduced density, for the concerns to be less, but they're the experts. It would be useful, I think, from my point of view, to hear from each of those subject matter experts before we arrive at a decision. My point, sorry. Don't mean to.
Yeah, I'd like to get your thoughts on three things that kind of comments that were made. First, the relocation of the entrance on Great Marsh. I assume Matt had a good reason for putting it, I mean, not just slightly offset, but directly across. And I think what people are saying is they want it like, I don't know how many feet that would be, but like 3 lots down, like in the middle
Yeah,
of the.
if it was offset, it would need to be
Yeah.
a minimum of 150 foot offset.
Okay, what does that look like on the plan there, down at
It's
the
probably,
other
yeah,
end
it
of
would
the?
probably put you down, yeah, it's about 3 or 4 lots. It would, it would want to put it down in this neighborhood.
And
At a
the
minimum.
question, with that, Mr. Bolanczyk, is not that it can't be done, but we have an engineer and we have traffic engineers here who's getting up to the table to discuss why it's not generally recommended to do that. And maybe if we could ask Mr. Hart to address that as well.
Yeah, that's why I assume that you put a lot of thought into this. You didn't just say, oh, let's put it across from Juniper.
Good evening, Randy Hart, Principal with VHB, with Transportation Consultants, with the Transportation Consultants on the project. I didn't work with Matt to design it, but I did review it, and if I had any issue with it, I would have brought it up at that time. Typically, when you have an opportunity to align an intersection with an existing intersection, you do it, because it's less confusing. The only reason you wouldn't do it is if you could create enough separation to make the two intersections work independent of each other. And in this case, I don't believe that we have enough space to be able to do that.
Yeah, not only that, but it puts it closer to Finney's Lane.
It does.
I'd have to agree with your
There's another issue at
placement.
play here, too. If you did move it down 3 lots, as people exit at night with the highlights, with their headlights on, it's going to be coming into somebody's house directly. And so, again, there's a number of reasons.
And then I'm going to get booed for this, but I've, lived down the street. I grew up there. I have a house there now. And I get lost every time I go into one of those side streets, like Pond Street or whatever. They had a detour there during maybe the sewer work. I literally got lost. And I just, maybe abutters do see people cutting through. I wouldn't do it, and I'm one of those people. I lived in the city for a long time, and if there's a shortcut, I will find it. Then just 2 other things. The playground, is there any way to put some kind of a playground on top of the drainage structures?
Actually, that was a thought that I had that I just kind of jotted down. I'd have to review that with Michael, but I mean, there's a possibility in some of those areas where the chambers are, you have some lawn areas. We probably could do something like, a small tot, like, we can't put any main, something that has a footing structure in it, but, you might be able to do some type of little area where, you can kick around a ball and maybe there's a couple of picnic tables and, I don't know, maybe a swing set or something.
Bike racks on the other
Yeah,
structure
something like
or
that,
something. And then the other thing is, and I'm not disagreeing or necessarily agreeing, but how do you arrive at the number of lots? Is it basically where you can get the setbacks that you need?
Well, I mean,
And
there's a
parking?
lot of things that go into that, right? It's not one parameter. But it's really just, it's looking at, what you can fit based on, setbacks is one of them, road circulation, how we can make the utilities work, stormwater management work. I mean, it all interplays, and I think, and Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but, under Mass General Law, the minimum lot area is 5,000 square feet. So 5,000 square feet and up is, what you're, kind of as a minimum, if you will. And, from elimination of the multifamily unit, I mean, right, 36 units, it has to be economically feasible for the project to work, or it's not going to happen. We need housing. If it's not economical, nobody's going to build it.
And I think there'd have to be extra cost for the developer
when
to.
you lose that density, you can't, all of a sudden do all this infrastructure and all the costs associated with it, and these want to be affordable houses. These aren't, $1.5 million houses. You have to have the density to make it, economically feasible, and it's, working with all of those things together to come up with a layout that works, that makes sense, that, is feasible. I mean, some people like it, some people don't like it. They're, I'll say starter homes, if you will, which I think I think we've heard some people comment, it's a great project. I've been doing this for a long time. I mean, there's not a lot of projects like this. We have, new single-family homes, subdivision created that you can have the starter homes with what prices are these days.
And just to follow up on that, remembering for the board, the legal standard that you're looking at, that we discussed at the first meeting, under 40B is the project consistent with local needs? There's a presumption that it is, because the town's less than 10% of its SHI with the state. So then the question is, what would render a project uneconomic? As Mr. Egan noted during one of the earlier meetings, one of the first plans they looked at was 3 apartment buildings on this property and no single-family homes. Okay, they went from that to the single-family homes and the 1 apartment building. If you're going to get rid of the denser, which is exactly what 40B is encouraging, is density, if you're going to get rid of that to go to a project like this, there have to be some trade-offs. And one of them here is smaller lots, but so you can get a number of units. And as Matt said, this will work. Mr. Egan believes that this will work, hopefully under the Commonwealth Builder Program, but that this can work with this density. And so that's how, as well, it was arrived at.
Can I,
Thanks for answering
can I just,
very completely.
can I pick up on that? The answer's got to be, well, you tell me. We got a sheet from Commonwealth Builders, which included a sentence that basically says that units built under that program are generally not countable in the subsidized housing inventory. Can you speak to that?
You're talking about the 80%, 100%. Yeah, so the 80% houses, under 40B, only 80% houses, at or low, being the AMI, area median income, can count towards the town's subsidized housing inventory. However, the town of Barnstable has a moderate income goal for housing, which brings you up to 100%. And so if this works through the Commonwealth Builders Program, which is Mr. Egan's goal, if he can do, and let's leave 40 Richardson out for a moment. If you have 26 houses of the 35 are going to be at 100% and 9 at the 80%, only the 9 would count towards the town's SHI, but those other 26 are directly addressing a town of Barnstable housing goal, which is moderate income housing, we'll call it, up to the 100%. The difference with homeownership is that when you have an apartment, as we had before, all units in an apartment house count towards the SHI because there's an encouragement of that in the law. With housing, it's only those that are 80% or less. But because Barnstable's forward thinking with the moderate housing, we're hitting a couple boxes with the 100% homes as well. Hope that answers your question.
So the units that are restricted for the 40B, the 80%, those are going to have permanent deed restrictions.
No, and that was the follow-up
They
to my
have
question.
to count on the SHI, though.
No, the deed restrictions here, as we've applied for, are 30 years restrictions because the Commonwealth Builder Program requires that. The maximum you can go under the Commonwealth Builder Program is a 30-year deed restriction. So yes, there will be deed restrictions, but for 30 years.
And that's satisfying EOLHC for them to go on the SHI. Because I thought we had conflicting deed restrictions. The deed restriction wasn't accepted by the state to go on our SHI, but maybe Jim can answer to it over the...
For a different project you're referring to?
Just the Commonwealth Builder Program, when you overlap it with a 40B, you have 2 different deed restriction requirements. The Commonwealth Builder wants one that expires, and the SHI wants permanent, perpetuity. But I'm not...
Yeah, good evening, Jim Cupfer, Director of Planning and Development. Yes, UHLC does prefer deed restrictions in perpetuity. They have in the past accepted those that are no less than 30 years. Ultimately, that process would play out in which we would get the deed restrictions and process them through EOHLC. So eventually, if they hold firm on Commonwealth Builder and requiring a deed restriction for 30 years, and that doesn't suffice UHLC, then the 9 units at 80% would have to rule the day in terms of how that affordability would be processed, because under 40B, those 9 units have to be at 80% area median income, if that helps.
And while we're sort of on this, did we get confirmation from the state that Commonwealth Builder will accept us granting this permit as a contribution from the town, from the community? Or do we have to, is the town going to be expected to contribute something else along the way?
At
Or
this
are
time,
we calling the sewer connection or something along those lines?
maybe I'll hand that off to the applicant.
Okay.
The hope is that the town, and we, as we said before, that the state would, the Commonwealth Builder Program would accept the town involvement with the sewer project, in the relation with this property as the town contribution. That was, is the hope, and again, that's something that comes later.
So when the site eligibility letter was already sent to Commonwealth, but we're already, the reason we're qualified under the site eligibility letter is through Commonwealth Builder. And when you fill out the forms, we've told them that we have a slightly larger sewer connection already installed on 195 Finney's Lane lot because of the accommodation that we had provided to the town for the sewer easement. And the Commonwealth Builder, by granting the site approval letter, we believe has agreed with our contention that the town has made a contribution. Now, there are probably other things we're going to negotiate through the end of this thing before final approval, and your town will have plenty of opportunities to make additional contributions, so, and I look forward to that.
Okay, Commonwealth asked for a willing contribution from the town. So did we give a value of what the town contributed then? Like that the sewer stub cost, $25,000 to put in, and that was their contribution to this project, or?
From what Mr. Egan just said, I don't believe that a specific value is required. It was the fact that he noted what was done with, he granted an easement to the town, which saved significant money to the town when they built the sewer, had the easement over his property, and the larger connection. As he noted in the PEL that was issued, that was at least preliminarily seen as a town contribution. With 40Bs, you get your preliminary PEL, you get your comprehensive permit, then you file for a final project eligibility letter with the state, and that's when they wrap everything up. So right now, the preliminary indication through the PEL is that what has happened is sufficient. If there's more later, we'll have to discuss that. But
so there's not a letter from the town manager saying, we're contributing this to support this project?
Correct.
There is a letter?
There is not a letter.
No,
No,
okay.
there is just what happened, which was the easement and the sewer stub and all that.
Just for the record, I've heard some of the comments from the audience. The stub that was installed is the same stub that everybody gets installed in their house when the sewer line goes in front of them. Ours was a little bit bigger, but it wasn't $25,000. I don't know what the town actually paid in terms of extra, but what they do anyway.
Okay.
And we are, of course, paying for the sewer connection permit, so.
Yeah. And then I guess the only other question in regards to the Commonwealth Builder thing, if the state, say the program becomes unfunded or it's not awarded, will this project be able to go forward in the same, or will it change, or?
There would have to be a different subsidy program at that point.
Okay.
If Commonwealth Builder wasn't there.
Okay.
So, yeah, I just want to piggyback on that real quick, because Attorney Singer, you've said, and the applicant as well, that this word hope keeps coming up. And I appreciate that for sure, and I guess it's my inexperience and my naivety in terms of 40B and Commonwealth Builder, but again, I don't know, where does that get decided, and what happens if it doesn't happen, I guess is really what, so how do we issue a permit on the basis of hope? I'm confused. I just don't understand. I'm not looking for.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask, please, for decorum? This happened at the first.
And I don't mean to be. I need education here, because I don't understand how we can, as a board.
Well, we're not approving a Commonwealth Builder project.
I understand that,
We're
but
approving a 40B, so I think the developer would have the right to sell the other 80% of the houses at
At market.
value if he chose to build them.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you're selling it to us in the community as 80% AMI for 9, and the other.
Be required no matter what.
Yeah, but I know, but.
I think there's a misunderstanding of how 40B works.
Let's-
Maybe we can let Jim answer that.
So, just real quickly, so what's before you is comprehensive permit, right? So 25% of these units are going to be deed restricted to 80% area median income. That's going to be the condition if you were to proceed with an approval. That's the condition. That's the mandate under the law, that 25% of these have to be 80% area median income. Anything outside of those, essentially 9 units, right, could be market rate. So if, putting aside Commonwealth Builder, everything else in this project would be market rate housing. Now, the applicant is saying, well, I'm considering this other subsidy program, this other financial opportunity, and that's all well and good. But at the end of the day, if that he's relying on that subsidy and it doesn't come to fruition and he has to change the project, it returns to you. So another condition that would likely happen is that it would be substantially in conformance with whatever plan that is eventually approved if you do get to approval. If the subsidy falls through for the applicant and, that means he's trying to get the apartment returns, for instance, that would have to come back to you. That's a substantial change to the application. So I think you've heard from some of the public that there is an interest in the Commonwealth Builder. And so, if the board agrees and you want to support that, or if the council wishes to support it in some way, they certainly can. But ultimately, what's before you, 9 units, 80% area median income.
Does the Commonwealth Builder require the other units to be at 100 or 120? What's the Commonwealth Builder's input in regarding the rest of the expense towards those other homes?
I don't know if I answered your question. There was a guideline that was included in the written documentation, and it's really a decision for the developer at what qualified group of people would you sell call it the non-40B homes.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a choice of going at 100% AMI. There's a different type of financing that the Commonwealth Builder provides, or you can accept less financing, and you would sell it to people who qualify at a higher income level, and therefore you could sell the home at a higher, call it relative market price, still
Sure.
lower than market. And that's a decision the developer makes at the time they sign their contract with Commonwealth Builder.
Gotcha. So
he could do a range. He could.
Understood.
I think it's
No, and I-
120 or
I-
110 at the top.
I-
Go to 110, I think.
110.
Yep, I remember seeing that.
That's what that means. So,
But does this happen before shovels are in the ground? I mean, are you going to build the 9?
it would be at the time you sign our financing contract with Commonwealth Builder.
Okay. So again, going back to Mr. Comfort, if we grant this permit as constantly, as constituted, presently, and then things change, is there potential that part of it will be built out already? No.
They have to build at the same ratio,
No.
the affordable units and the market units.
What we're really asking you guys for is an approval of essentially density, road layout.
Yep, okay.
And the 80%.
Yep, I'm getting it.
That's pretty much, and the
Yep.
80%.
Yeah, the 80% would be the condition in your decision. And as Mr. Kupfer noted, in all the projects I've ever worked on, we've always wound up coming back to the board for some sort of a minor or other modification, because again, when you get to the final stages, things change. And if they change enough, you have to come back to the board.
So can you go back and maybe, Jim, you can speak to this, the time-limited deed restrictions, why not have them be in perpetuity? I'm trying to, and does that mean that in 30 years, SHI basically gets reduced by 9.
That's exactly what that means if it's a 30-year deed restriction. So this was typical in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So over the past 20 years in my career, I've had to negotiate terms with affordable housing units in order to extend those deed restrictions. So yes, that's exactly what that means. My understanding of the 30-year is in collaboration with the Commonwealth Builder Program. So if ultimately this board said, that isn't something that we are interested in, and the town is not interested in, and you want to see a deed restriction in perpetuity, you certainly could have that conversation, but it would eliminate the opportunity, to my understanding, for the Commonwealth Builder Program.
On those 9 units, though, just on the 9.
I guess that's my question. This is a condition imposed by Commonwealth Builders, is that right?
Okay. And it's meant to promote home ownership and call it the equity that one builds in their home over time. And because we see what happens when people who own homes who don't really own the upside and what happens to them. And this is a way for people to have ownership and create generational wealth.
So in 30 years, they can sell it at market.
But Jim, there's an opportunity for the community to buy them back, is that right? Or extend, how does that work? I can't.
So
really
potentially, so the town of Barnstable does have an affordable housing trust, so the town of Barnstable is in a good position to potentially buy those as first right of refusal. We do get those notices for first right of refusal, and we can act on those if we so chose. So we can, and again, not every community has essentially a financial arm in which they could potentially be in position to purchase that deed restriction. So yes, they could potentially down the road, 30 years from now, if it was to expire.
Okay.
Is the first right added to those deed restriction?
So through the process, if this was to proceed, there would be what's called a local action unit application, and or a local LIP, and that application would go to EOHLC, so the state, and in that there would be what's called a regulatory agreement, not the regulatory agreement that we're used to here in town of Barnstable, a different agreement, and that agreement would state all of those requirements in there. So we would review that to make sure that all those are in it per the conditions that are stated in the ZBA decision as well.
Yep.
And so if we as a board wanted to have the 9 units in perpetuity, the state can wait, we can make that request, but then the applicant could request the state to waive that, and then it would go to 30 years?
No. So ultimately, it would need to be the inverse. The condition would be, well, depending on where you land on this, the condition would be that, the 9 affordable units per 40B would be a minimum of 30 years deed restricted. If ultimately, Commonwealth Builder fell through and the applicant would extend that, then they could. If you put a condition that these deed restrictions shall be in perpetuity, and so not a minimum of 30 years, but in perpetuity, my understanding is that the state, through the Commonwealth Builder Program, doesn't agree with their program, and therefore they're likely ineligible for that program if you were to deed restrict it in perpetuity. We could follow up with the state to confirm that, but that has been traditionally my understanding of that.
To get Commonwealth Builder funds for those 9 units, they would be ineligible to get those funds. But they would be eligible for Commonwealth Builder funds on the other 27 or whatever it was.
Not certain.
And then they would put the restriction on those other 27 units following the Commonwealth Builder language, which would expire. And they would only be at 100%.
But wait, before he walks away, Jim, real quick, I'm sorry. 9 units with all the growth in the town of Barnstable, is it even making the needle wiggle? No.
Wiggle's a relative term.
No, you know what I mean. I mean, is the needle even moving towards that 10%?
No, you're adding 9 units.
That's it.
Yeah.
So it's doing nothing. Again, I'm not, but it's not.
25%.
But it's
I know, I get that. I understand it's something, but it's yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
But as a policy matter, has the town council, has the town of Barnstable agreed to accept these deed-limited restrictions, 30 years as opposed to in perpetuity? Or is that what we're being asked to do?
Well, the town, for the last 5 years, has only had one other 40B, and that was in perpetuity. I mean, it was a small one. It was a 14-unit. Ultimately, 2 units were affordable. So, yeah, those were in perpetuity. But
so this would be a first for the town of Barnstable.
Well, as of late, we have several on our subsidized housing inventory that were 30-year deed restrictions that have either converted or fallen off over time.
So that number sort of ebbs and flows.
Absolutely, and it ebbs and flows every 10 years when the census comes back out.
Right, not just because of increased units, but the number of
total housing units. Yeah.
Okay.
And then our inclusionary ordinance, though, those restrictions are in perpetuity.
That's
correct.
correct.
So, I mean, the town has generally been going, and I think anything the Affordable Housing Trust subsidizes is required to be in perpetuity as well.
Right, I get that.
So,
Interesting.
all right, any more questions on that? I want to ask some questions more about the livability of the project.
Yeah, I do too.
So I guess the first thing was just like roadway stuff, and maybe to Matt. Can you just explain the waiver that, like, so the subdivision requirement is that it's a wider road than what you're proposing and not have sidewalks?
Yeah, no, the road width, the paved width is not a waiver. That's 20 feet is what a minor A road is. The
Okay.
waiver is for the right-of-way width, the land width.
Okay.
The subdivision reg for minor A is 50 feet. We've proposed 40 feet, just because, right, less land area, right?
Yeah.
And it's still plenty wide to do what we're proposing to do. I'm sorry? Mike said the planning board does that all the time. So the other waiver is just on the center line radius, the 2 turns you see on either kind of, opposite corners, those are a 50-foot radius, okay, 50-foot arc radius. On a minor A, off the top of my head, I think it's 150 feet. So we're asking for a waiver from that. This, in my opinion, is actually a better layout. Like, if you remember, I mean, we went through, like, over the past, say 20 years, open space design criteria and cluster development and so forth, and where it actually, you want to reduce road width. You want to reduce radii because it slows traffic down. The subdivision regs, which haven't been changed, probably, I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, but it's probably, I don't know, the 80s or so. When you do roads that are wider and these big sweeping radiuses going through a subdivision like this, all that does is just let people go faster. This totally allows all the type of traffic that it needs to handle. It allows emergency vehicle access. The biggest thing you're going to see is the tower truck, and the circulation through this is not a problem at all. So those are that waiver, and then the waiver for the sidewalks. Other than that, I think somebody spoke about construction of the road surface and so forth. There's no waivers requested to that. This will be to the specifications of the subdivision regulations as far as the road cross-section, gravel borrow base, pavement widths. It's going to have Cape Cod berm edge treatment, which, that's a standard Cape Cod berm, 1 foot wide. I mean, so it's, everything else is, per the subdivision regs for the road construction and design. It's just those waivers of the right-of-way width, just the land width, not the road travelway width, that the radii, centerline, and the sidewalk. And then, I mean, there's a couple others, obviously, the trees, which is both in the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regs. We've asked for 1 every 55 feet instead of 1 at 30 feet. But as far as the road design criteria, those are the waivers.
And why can't we put sidewalks in? Was that what was the rationale?
I think just from it was a decision by the applicant as far as just overall cost and the amount of units that it wasn't necessary. I think if you look at, and I know there's a lot of, discussion and comments on both sides, but, go through the majority of subdivisions and developments that are like this and that are bigger than this. They don't have sidewalks. So that's what the decision is, and it's all, at the end of the day, right, it's all cost, right? Everything adds cost. If you get to a point where it's not economically feasible, it's not going to be able to be done, whether it's this, application or another application, right? That's always a big driver, as you guys
Yeah,
know.
I wanted to sort of hear what the rationale was on it.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, as Matt was alluding to, when you're looking at the 40B, and as one of you said, you're standing in the stead of others, you have to look at a project the same way that those boards would. And it said sidewalks are not typical in subdivisions in Barnstable. However, I would point out in this case, there is a pathway out the end of the road to a sidewalk that's going to be extended into the sidewalk system. So residents of this neighborhood can get out to the sidewalk, out to the crosswalk on 28. And people can debate which side of the roads and things like that. But this project, more than other subdivisions in this neighborhood, is providing some connectivity.
Okay. And road ownership will be maintained by the development? Is that the intention here?
It would be my hope that the town would eventually accept the road.
Okay. So, but for if the town doesn't initially, then
It'd be a private road
and it
system.
would be privately maintained. And so essentially you could put speed bumps in there if you wanted to, right? If there was a concern with speed and traffic in the
Yeah,
in the
but I don't think
subdivision?
internally, speed bumps, no, I would never.
I mean, there was just, I heard.
I think some of the comments
Miss-
you were hearing, I think people were referring to speed bumps on Great Marsh Road, which that's a town.
Yeah, it's a town
In
road.
discussions with town officials, I was encouraged to offer the road for acceptance because of the recent experience the town had with the recent big heavy snowstorm, where a lot of people on private roads were requiring the town to come plow them out, get them out, and you heard testimony from, I believe, an existing town councilor about it's just silly. I mean, I've done a dozen subdivisions, and they all get accepted by the town, and that's why we're going to build the road. Not like some of the roads in the Waquaca Estates neighborhood, we're going to build them to town spec.
Town spec, okay.
As triggering thing, it lowers the HOA fees, which we don't think there will be any, and that makes it more affordable. And what we hear is, we heard a lot, make it as affordable as possible for as many as possible.
Okay. And then, Matt, on the drainage, so the stormwater is taking all of the water from the roadways, but not every lot is
No,
self-contained?
every
Or is it
lot
taking it from the
is-
paved driveway as well?
Yep.
So the paved driveway will be
Yep.
pitched into the
Stormwater
roadway and
management
then,
calculations that we've done, we just, the report's going to be, yay big when it's done and we get it over to DPW, but the design that we've performed, advancing these plans and what you're seeing for all those systems, that incorporates all the typical lot development that we have in the plans with the driveways and all that, it's all included in there. And that, that's why we have, a dry well on each lot, so that picks up the roof runoff, because that's considered clean runoff, put that right in the ground right there, but everything else, those systems are designed for full build-out. And again, through the 100-year storm, I mean, we're infiltrating everything back into the ground.
okay. And then on those Coltex, so you said there was a potential that some sort of recreation space could be on top of them, or a dog park?
I want to look at it a little bit closer, but there's, there's enough level there, and it's going to have to be cleared, and it's going to be graded, and right, so the chambers go into the ground, they get backfilled, and then it's going to be stabilized, so it's going to be a lawn area, if you will. So I think there's probably some opportunity there. I'd have to talk about it with Mr. Egan, but.
I don't know, I was, again, trying to address Miss Sydney's concerns
No,
of the kids are gonna play in the street, so, okay, make sure it's
No, I
not too
think
fast in the street, it's just gonna happen.
No, it could
And
be
then if you give them some spaces, whether it's a dog park in one of them and a little playground in the other one, I don't know, or a picnic area.
And what is there on the road? Is it a catch basin of some sort that feeds to those?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
all the-
it's built into the-
drainage system. If you're on the grading and drainage plan, you'll see there's catch basins with drain pipes that then all, outfall to those 3 stormwater management areas. And then there's that one small one
Yep.
in the center that has its own, yep, that's correct.
And then I guess sort of my last sort of livability question here. Sheds, accessory structures, are there gonna be restrictions that they can't happen, that they can't modify their driveway to hold 6 cars instead of the 2? Is that, I mean, I don't know how that goes down the road. And then the other one on top of that was ADUs. Is there gonna be a restriction that ADUs can't happen, or could people add on ADUs to these down the road?
So, on the first question, sheds, et cetera, would be as any lot owner in town, if it complies with zoning and the building department gives you the shed permit, you can. As far as ADUs, I think you heard from where, these lots are too small under this configuration, so we don't believe there'd be any room for them.
Okay.
About preference being given to town residents. Has that been a discussion a point you've considered?
Mike, do you want to?
There are, I think, some standard discussion, limitations or definitions of what restrictions are allowed by Commonwealth Builder. We would look to those for guidance. I think it's in the guidelines we gave you. In terms of addition, I think my guideline expert isn't here tonight. Our intention would be certainly the affordable houses. We want to make especially the Commonwealth Builder ones above the other 75% are to the largest market we can, and where we are legally restricted to not say no to a lot of people. So we would do whatever is. We wouldn't do anything. We'd do what legally required, I guess, is what I'm saying.
So I guess Attorney Singer, just going through the list, I mean, I don't know if you want to walk us through the list of waivers, or if that's helpful for the board of what we're being asked
Certainly
to waive.
is, yep.
But one thing I noticed that was missing on there is a local ordinance that I think you would be getting a waiver for would be the 10% inclusionary, because that would require 10% at 65% AMI. Correct?
Okay.
Or
I'll follow up on that.
Okay.
Thought we'd captured it all through the density request. If we go through this, I'll touch on that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd be happy to go through it. The first is Chapter 112. There are 3 homes at 39, 51, and 61 Great Marsh Road that are greater than 75 years old, so there is a requirement for review prior to demolition. So we're requesting for a waiver from that separate review. I mean, we're here before you.
And would that just be requesting that, isn't that an administrative review? Is there a reason you can't just ask for administrative? It's administrative. I don't think we'd have to go to the historic board, right? It would just be.
I mean, administrative, as long as they don't say then it's an 18-month construction delay.
But has that been done to see if we even need the waiver? I mean, has that been done to see?
I'm not the architect. I don't know what those,
Okay.
I doubt it probably, but I think, that's why the waiver was requested, because you don't want to have the potential of them saying an 18-month construction delay.
And
Right.
But we don't even know if that, I mean, I would rather you say that we found out that this would cause an 18-month construction delay. Can you waive it? Like, we don't know. Did some
I'm just
sea
not
captain live in this
sure.
thing or something, and it's like historically significant? I don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but again, because you are all the local permits under the 40B, I believe you're the correct venue as opposed, so we can't go to the planning board and say, would you be okay with this? No, it's you guys. We can't go for historic and say, are you okay with this? It's you guys. So I think, my experience is, we have to, and I've done this not in Barnstable, in other towns where I've done 40Bs, I've done many where there was local historic districts, it was through you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then Anna or Jim, so then do we need to reach out to the Historic Commission and say, can you please tell us if we have any issues with these houses, if the applicant doesn't have to? Yeah? We need to do that? I mean, we have no comment, right, on that? I don't think.
Yes, yeah, Barnstable Historic Commission has received this. I'm not certain if we received comment, Anna, but we can follow up tomorrow morning with that to see where the chairman stands on this.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, are we supposed to, like, are you asking us to go to these boards and actually do this and go to these meetings for you? I mean, I just, again, it's like, I don't think we need a waiver for it, but.
Yeah. We're not asking you to do anything. I mean, you are all the boards. I'm not saying that, it's what you are. And again, as Jim said, and to your point earlier, all the town board, we can't go to all the town boards. The whole point is we're here before you as the comprehensive permit. All the other boards and departments are solicited for their input, and they can give it to you. They don't have to give it to you. And again, so I'm not trying to be difficult, but it's just, That's why we're here.
Yeah, it would, again, I'm just trying to sort of, have a, whatever, backup that we did our due diligence. Okay, historic board, please tell us in a letter that this does not have any historic impact. And we wouldn't even need you could remove the waiver probably at that point if you had that letter.
I don't think we could remove the letter, because again, even if they said, we're fine with it, we have no issues, it's still a requirement. And so if we're not meeting that requirement to go seek demolition delay review, because it might impose a delay, and again, I don't think these houses are, but we have to include it with you, I believe.
Is that solicitation done through the town, of the various boards, through the town?
Yes, we're not allowed to. So we file all the information, and the town, and in this case, she shipped it out to everybody. She's done it a few times now. And so, yes, that's how the process works.
Because the definition of local board is any local board or official
It's
that has
everything.
jurisdiction over anything related to this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
Local dog catcher.
All right, well.
All right, so that one we'll
not seeking
circle
any
back with
waivers from
historic
that.
and try to get some feedback
Okay.
for our consideration, I guess.
Okay.
So then we'll go on to the next one, the scenic roads.
Okay, scenic roads. Now, that is for removal of street trees along Great Marsh Road as necessary to construct the subdivision roadway only. So as you saw, as Matt showed on the landscape plan, we're keeping and augmenting most of it. But there is a point, wherever this driveway is, there's a point where you have to cut it in. And that is, so the waiver is for that. To the extent there are any trees there, there may or may not be.
And DPW made some comment in regards to that and then pushed it to the tree warden, or that you would work with the tree warden, correct?
I think they
So
said.
And that's standard language they do on every project, you work with the tree warden.
So while we're on that point real quick, and I don't mean to interrupt, but obviously we heard from the community, the members of Lake Wocket Estates, that the intersection at egress from this subdivision across from Juniper is a concern. Is somebody going to look, are we going to look at that further, or no?
That's up to us.
Well, I know it's up to us, but it was asked if it could be moved, and there was a question about 150 feet and so forth, and it was I think.
But again, that's for, so we can rely on what Mr. Hart has said to feel comfortable with it. We can ask our DPW to give us more feedback, or we could, I personally think it's necessary here, but we could ask for an independent review of that to give a more formal response of.
Yeah, because I didn't hear, I heard that I think it was, again, don't quote me on that, but that there's enough room there, right? If we have to, it's got to be within 100, I don't remember the language now, 150 feet or.
To
Well,
Finney's.
Mr. Webb, what Mr. Hart said was, he doesn't think there's 150 feet that you'd have to have enough distance that they would be truly independent, was his comment.
Exactly.
Yeah, and from Matt, if they're not 150 feet, we might need another waiver.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do them at less than 150 feet. There's no,
Okay, so again, do we know definitively if there's 150 feet there or not?
Say that again?
Do we know if there's 150
Well,
feet there?
there's more than 150 feet of frontage along Great Marsh Road, yeah. But that alignment is the correct alignment for that road. That's the best location for it based on the surrounding area, the intersection at Finney's. That's the location for it.
But
and from my standpoint, and again, I've heard what everybody said, and I'm intently listening. And when I see something that, hey, we can make this better, I'm all for it. But that is not a situation. Now, if Mr. Egan tells me that he wants to move it, I will look at moving it, as long as I'm comfortable where it's going to be located from an engineering standpoint when I'm stamping the plans. But that's the location that should be. So I don't think, no, I mean, that road, in my opinion, isn't moving.
Okay. If I may, though.
We have the ability, if we wanted to ask for a third opinion, outside opinion, or
No.
or we can lean back on DPW to give us review Mr. Hart's information and say, yes, we agree that this is where it should be, or no, it should be moved.
But if I may, Mr. Eddie, I hear everything you say. You didn't address something that I heard from the public, the condition of the road across the street. It's a different road, able to withstand. But I guess what I'm asking is, does that factor into the decision?
It does, absolutely. A couple of things I just want to mention because it's important to get it out there. First and foremost, and Andrew alluded to it very briefly before, but the Cape Cod Commission has reviewed the traffic materials and issued a letter on March 10th, 2026. and I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Cape Cod Commission, but I've been working with them for 30 years, and they have very talented engineers there who are not bashful to tell you when they see something they don't like or they see something they want changed. They didn't mention access, which means they didn't have an issue with it. That's number one. Number two, there was a suggestion by one of the early presenters that Juniper wasn't looked at in the traffic study. That couldn't be further from the truth. On page 33, table 7, the existing, the no-build, and the build analysis of that intersection, existing and no-build, was on its own without the driveway across, but the build shows it with the driveway across, and it shows a level of service that we would see during peak summer conditions, which is the worst-case scenario, and it shows level of service A during all periods in the morning, level of service A during 4 of the movements, or 3 of the movements during the weekday evening when level service B. That's a high level of operation for an unsignalized intersection. So not only do we think the geometry is in the right location, the operations are showing that it's going to work, and it's going to work well.
And just one other point, I think, to your question, the through traffic that the neighborhood's bringing up, and understand that they're dealing with what people are doing, but that has nothing to do with this design. That is an intersection to put you onto Great Marsh Road. It's not an intersection to send people through the subdivision across the street. If people are making cut through, it's not a through way. It's like any intersection, you line up the intersections. It's not because we're trying to put it through their subdivision. If somebody's going to do that, that's what they're doing, but it's intended to put it onto the main collector, which is Great Marsh to Finney's Road.
I guess I think linearly, so indulge me. If there was a 4-lane highway, a 4-lane road, okay, opening into a single lane, would the same logic apply just because they align?
I think
No. I know it's an extreme example. I'm getting to the point. What the neighbors have indicated is that the roads in that neighborhood can't support this level of traffic. Now, I know you're saying that this is just an egress. It's not a cut-through. They disagree.
From a design standpoint, and an engineering standpoint, and a traffic analysis standpoint, that subdivision is not intended to put traffic through that other road. That other road that exists, whatever's happening there, has nothing to do with this subdivision. And I would, just to your point of the 4-way lane highway, this level of road that this subdivision is generally equal to what's across the street. It's just that the road across the street has been constructed from because it's an older road, to a narrower section. But they actually, I would say, the amount of units on the other side, that's actually is a higher class road across the street than what this subdivision is. So I have no issues with it being a new 20-foot minor A road intersection aligning with Juniper, which would be, from a classification standpoint, as far as traffic, would be a minor A, but it might be built at only 16 or 18 feet, and it's an older road. I don't know what the condition of the pavement is in there, but I don't have an issue with those two types of roads aligning from each other.
Thank you.
Should we keep moving on the waivers? I was just wanting to okay, go ahead.
About the intersection, has anybody, there might be a no-through traffic sign already, but I would think that
Yeah, I
might
mean, where
be
does
a
the-
deterrent right there.
It's on the town, that's not.
Yeah, I know it is, so, I mean,
think
yeah, I don't know. All right, let's keep moving, I guess. I'm not getting anywhere.
I think if you wanted Mr. Egan to put in a single traffic sign that said that, whether people are going to watch it, I don't think he would have a problem doing that.
Yeah. Problem solved.
You could close off the end of Pond Street. I
Or it
guess.
might say, not through, it might be local traffic only or something like that. Right?
So the next one, Attorney Singer, would be the zoning ordinance, lot size and stuff, which
I don't know what else you can do.
I understand, but does everyone want? I mean, if you want to go through each one, I guess, it's lot size and shape.
We gave you the detail as you requested. And again, the rationale for them is in order to have this subdivision in lieu of having the apartment buildings, to have what's there. So, yeah, they're all there in detail. We don't need to go through all of them. Matt actually mentioned several of them when he did his presentation. And then I can jump to the top.
street tree spacing, that one, I know Matt mentioned a little bit.
He mentioned that as well.
But is it really not possible to put them one every 30?
I think one every 30 is
much?
way excessive in there. We looked at it, I started going, this is like, it's excessive, absolutely.
Okay.
You'd end up with the driveways and the, each of these lots is probably 50 to 55 foot of frontage.
So that would be the
You
front.
put a
This
driveway
is
and
the
so
front.
forth, yeah, it's,
This is the front, you're talking the front of the lots on the no-name road, or the road name 1 and 2.
I'm sorry?
This is the tree line on the new road.
The new road.
On the
Not-
on the internal.
Yeah, the internal,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm thinking, what I'm saying, I think there was a comment by one of the abutters previously as well, the buffer strip along Great Marsh Road, and I agree, because the language, so that's why I was presented, coming up with something that's a little bit more, specific, if you will. When the construction is occurring, you look at the trees that are left in that buffer strip. And we see what's left, and you make sure that there is a tree that meets the street tree requirement, which if we're planting a new one, it's going to be a 3-inch caliper tree, that we have one every 30 feet. So when you clear it, you get this buffer strip left, you have some, and I was looking, there's some nice oaks that are going to remain, but so let's just say we got one oak here that's existing, and then we go, 50, 55 feet, and there's not another tree, we would say that, if it's going to be one every 30 feet. Now, the other thing you got to be careful of, and that's where the tree warden would come in, is you got to be careful of, let's say it's at, I'm saying one every 30 feet, and you got something at 40 feet, you can't necessarily put a tree, depending on the type of tree, at 20 feet, because they're going to die, right? So I think, we'd come up with some language, I think, that you provide with it, so it ends up being a net of equivalent of one tree every 30 feet along just along the frontage of Great Marsh Road, that buffer strip.
Okay.
And then internally, though, that's the street tree waiver, is the one every 55.
All right, Attorney Singh, do you want to keep going on?
Sure.
that?
Article 9, site plan review is if, and Mr. Egan hasn't decided this, but if he wants a freestanding sign, that would be something, again, we'd be coming to you for. But that's an if.
So that's not waiving going to site plan review,
It is, because if they're,
just for the sign?
you're correct. If
Just
it
for
was-
the sign?
Correct.
Okay. But
you still
not
have to
the
get-
whole
'Cause
site plan
they-
review?
Right, informal site plan review for everything Mr. Alves was getting to is separate.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
because there's no apartment building, there's a good chance there's no sign, so this may be moot, but
Yeah.
it's on the list,
Okay.
just in case. Chapter 801, the subdivision regulations, again, Matt hit all those, or hit most of them. I'm happy to go over any of them, but it's just some of the technical requirements, and he did hit most of them.
So can you just so like the tree map, that's the number of trees per foot, or just not providing
No,
a
a
tree
tree
map?
map is there's a subdivision requirement showing like every tree. I
tree.
think it's like 4-inch caliper or bigger. I mean, yeah, but we're asking for a waiver for identifying every tree that's on that lot. The environmental analysis form is just a standard, and, we're doing all the environmental aspects.
Wait,
It's
but
just a
So what is it? Can you just give us a quick, education on what that is?
For the environmental analysis
Yeah,
form,
like
off
what
the top
that-
of my head, I cannot quote everything.
No,
for
I mean,
it.
just what it includes. Just give us a summary of what it is. Again,
just,
we don't know.
It's really like water quality. So we're addressing water quality through the nitrogen loading analysis that we've given to you and the stormwater management. That's
Okay.
really what it boils down to.
And the reason not for supplying it is just
It's just
time and
more
expense.
paperwork.
Okay.
We just, there's a lot of overlay of everything about, the regulatory aspects just create so much duplicative work.
Okay.
Dead-end street is, again, the length of it and everything meets the criteria, but we're proposing, which the subdivision regulations do allow a T turnaround. They identify a standard cul-de-sac, but a T turnaround can be utilized. That's what we're proposing. The T turnaround is slightly smaller than their standard T turnaround, so that's the reason for the waiver. And it's a full cul-de-sac, round cul-de-sac would not fit.
Okay. And that would have been at the end where it meets
Road 2.
the end of Road 2.
It's just
Okay.
that condition right there.
So it's just, what's there? I mean, what's preventing a car from going right through it?
We'll probably have a fence or a guardrail right there. But there's a separation, there's the curb line right there. Yeah, so you would put a guardrail.
And
At the end
then
of the T.
and then that's where the people walk off to connect to the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I'm just, I'm,
Yeah, yeah, yep,
yep,
yep.
just asking, I
Yeah,
can't
I mean,
see
the
it.
connection, so if there's a guardrail, there'll be an opening through it, and there's, the sidewalk's right there, so they're coming off the corner of that T right there to the side.
And walking up to the,
also be secondary access
If the fire department wants.
Yeah, if there's,
Yeah, where it would
if
have
there's
been.
secondary access, then
Have to be open.
if well, it won't be open, no. If it's an emergency access only, it's gated, so there'll be a gate that stops anybody from going through it. The gate has a Knox box on it that the fire department controls, and that's how if they need that for a secondary emergency access, they open the gate and they go through it.
Just while we're in that area, what is that strip of, it looks like there's a lot line there, the dotted line, and there's a little bit extra land. What was that? What is the, that
This
right there?
here?
Sorry, well, off topic, but it was on my notes.
That is the
Yeah, it's the,
east side of the
it's the,
paper road.
yeah, so
It's
if,
the old, what are the paper road layout?
It's the east half.
this thing's gonna take forever to load. If you look at the existing conditions plan, it shows that paper street.
Okay.
That is the other half of the paper street, which, prior dialogue, the house that's there has actually built some of their driveway and their barn or shed in that, which it's a way. They don't own, it's not theirs to put a structure in.
Okay.
So Mr. Egan, when we were doing this design, he said, let me work with them, and, so we're gonna, basically, when it's a private way, you own to center line, even though there's rights, you can't put a structure in it. We've done it so that half of that private right-of-way can then the ownership, there'll be no conflict with the guy keeping his barn and his shed there, basically. That's what it boils down to.
So that would remain undisturbed land, and whatever trees are there would just sort of stay.
Yeah, it would remain
Okay.
as it
I mean,
is.
Okay, okay.
Again, he's got some driveway on it, and it's
It's
then,
mostly to prevent title problems from the people buying the houses.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, that was off topic, Attorney Singer.
No, that's okay.
sidewalks we talked about, storm drain piping, this is standard, again, the subdivision regs are old.
Actually, before you leave sidewalks,
Yep.
I guess I was under the impression that sidewalks are not required, but you're asking for a waiver not to be required to put it in.
Correct.
They're required in our subdivision plan.
In the subdivision
are.
regs. Yeah, not zoning ordinance.
But they're just not built, so they must be waived all the time.
Okay.
Then the storm drain piping, that's a standard, again, regs are old. Standard piping, the town uses it all the time, it's ADS N12, it's corrugated plastic pipe, that's what's used. It's just not, it's not identified in the subdivision regs, so I identified that's what we want to use. Pretty standard. Street trees, we talked about a few times. And then the Appendix A, which is the 40-foot right-of-way and the 50-foot centerline, we discussed that as well. So.
And then the last one, Mr. Chairman, is the Cape Cod Commission, which is similar to the very first one, which is the Historic District. Cape Cod Commission is a local board by law, and so they actually have reviewed and submitted a detailed letter to you that was referred to earlier, and so they're on the list because they have to be. You're in their stead.
Okay.
So those, and this is reduced. There were the stormwater, so this is a reduced list in more detail than what we had presented before with the earlier development.
And do you anticipate any others coming out of site plan review or other things that come up, or?
The only one that in theory could, I'll check, is that 10% inclusionary. They said if we actually should, belt and suspenders, put it in, but I don't envision anything else.
Yeah,
from,
I can't think of any either.
We went through this as carefully as we could.
So I want to stop real quick, though, with this Cape Cod Commission piece. So you're asking for a waiver where the Cape Cod Commission normally would be involved with a proposal containing 30 or more residential units.
That is correct.
And so you're asking us to just do what? Just not include them?
No, they're a local board, so just like the planning board. So planning board's a good example. We have to go to the planning board. They would have to issue sign a definitive subdivision plan at the end of their review proposal. In this case, you guys are going to sign the definitive subdivision plan. The historic district, if the demolition delay, if that would be something, you're waiving from the requirement to go through that because they're a local board. It's the same with the Cape Cod Commission. They're a local board. You solicited their comments because when you vote, you're voting for them as a local board as well. They have no independent jurisdiction, but they, like DPW submitted a comment letter. I don't know if it's a very lengthy letter. It talked about traffic and many other issues, stormwater, et cetera. So, I mean, I hope that answers your question. It's similar to the other boards.
I guess, yeah, I guess. So, but if we, I mean, we have the ability to deny certain waivers, or is it all inclusive, or is it, can we say, we'll bypass the tree waiver, but we're gonna make you, we don't want to do, I mean, again, I don't know, again, that's a question I'm
The
asking.
legal standard is you could deny a waiver if two things. One, it's related to a life safety issue, and two, if it doesn't render the project uneconomic. Though that's the legal standard. So that's why you look at them each,
That's why I sort of went through, like, that's
Yeah,
why I was asking,
no.
like, what this, like, why we aren't putting sidewalks in, is it, what's, so, I don't know, do you have questions for Jim, or
Nope.
Manny? I mean, I think we're making some progress here and getting there. What's your thought on?
So what we would, I think, we have the new plan. I think we had some good questioning back and forth. I don't think we are ever going to make everybody happy. I'll venture to say I don't think I'm going to make 95% of the people sitting behind me happy. However, the project, as you're looking at, is a 40B, and you're trying to look at it through your jurisdiction. What you've had several rounds of public comment, and you're hearing, even tonight, you hear a lot of the same comments, similar. We all know what they are. What we would ask you to do, consider, because we know you're going to continue the meeting, but we believe it might be helpful if you close the public hearing and continue to the next meeting so that we can. So that we can continue working with you and the town departments on ironing out the details, because you have to hammer out ultimately a pretty detailed decision with conditions. We compile a lot of the conditions that you guys have done in many cases and before, and so that was what we would like to ask you to consider, so that we can continue answering your questions, working with you, and working towards a decision.
Okay.
I guess what I would say is definitely need to continue. I mean, you submitted these revised proposal, which again, thank you. I appreciate the applicant's willingness to listen and react to comments from the public. But we've only given the various departments a week, to be fair. You submitted this on the 1st, today is the 8th. To your earlier point, we can't force them to comment, but we should give them a reasonable period of time. I mean, as you said, safety, health, those are areas that we need to we can consider in determining whether or not this is consistent with local needs. And, the removal of the emergency access. I'd like to hear the fire department's view on that. And any other local board that
Well, I think
chooses to comment.
I think that's what we need to identify here a little bit to push it. Like, I would love to get the historic board to just respond and say, yeah, these houses are irrelevant, we don't care.
Exactly.
Fine, we'll grant the waiver or whatever. There was concern about from fire and police, so maybe we need to push fire, police, and water to give us something.
Water, COM needs to weigh in,
But I think we just need, like, quickly hear everyone identify what those things are, so we make sure we push those. We may have to have Anna reach out to them and say, hey, we need comment. Whether the comment is no comment, we need a comment from those boards, so we can kind of check those boxes. But Jim, did you have any sort of follow-up on where we are in process here?
Yeah, thank you. Jim Comfort, Director of Planning and Development. Yes, I think you guys are actually going right into the direction that I was going to offer. There is a lot of great comments. You've received a lot of new information. A lot of plan discussion that we need to go over with potentially DPW. I would suggest maybe myself and maybe Mr. Eddy and the town engineer sit down and review that stormwater drainage plan, because here tonight we hear that this is potentially a public way, which would impact our acceptance of that drainage as well, the infrastructure that would be associated with it. So I think that would be beneficial for you to have some more feedback and details from our town engineer on that regard. Same thing with Fire, because of the removal of that gate originally. Perhaps they would like to see that added back, so we can certainly follow up, and Anna and I will work closely to get any and all other comments in between now and then. My suggestion is I could certainly, or staff could certainly, expand upon your staff report. At the moment, you have your staff report with our traditional conditions that are put in place and original findings. We can begin to beef those up with everything we've heard from the board tonight. And so that you can have a little bit more understanding of, I guess, what a potential decision could look like, not closing the hearing, but continuing it and expanding upon what a decision could look like. So maybe it would be maybe assist you in wrapping your head around what that could potentially evolve into. If you wish, we can happily do that. Yeah.
Can you add calm water to your list there, Jim?
It's on there, yes, sir.
Perfect.
Will the town engineer be able to give a weigh in on the placement of the entrance being across, like what he prefers, or is that something we have to get an opinion from someone else?
He certainly could provide an opinion, and if he feels that he needs further assistance, I can ask that as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just want
and
to
give you
get
feedback.
again, we are not traffic engineers. We are not. So if we can get someone professional to give us guidance on what the best scenario is, because
And I'll make sure that we discuss that. And I'd also just kind of say that, they've seen that entrance, more than twice. And we had site plan review last, and if they had an issue with it, I know they would have told me. So, they may, it's possible.
Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just trying to get someone else to say that it's
absolutely. We want to make sure that
right
you
or
guys, that the questions that you have are answered.
Anything else? The schools question, I don't know, do they does the school department get notification of this? And then, that was something else on my list, does the school bus go through a neighborhood like this, or everyone would congregate at the outside of the?
So they examine it each year, but my assumption would be they would come to the Great Marsh entrance there.
Okay.
So we can certainly
do they ever make comments on a subdivision plan of any, just?
Not typically, no, honestly. But, we could certainly push that issue. But I think there was some great comments being made about kids congregating towards that edge. You see that all over Hyannis too. And so perhaps, some accommodations could be added there. We could certainly discuss it with the applicant.
Yeah, I just didn't know if they would advise that the road opening be wider because there's going to be kids sitting in the corner. I don't know.
Or a bus stop.
Or a bus stop, yeah, I don't know how that works. Anything else? Deborah?
It's really, just speaking to me, and it's a change to the application. And it's a change in the application that we need weigh-in because it is a change. And I think a week is just, the board needs more time. It's a major decision.
But I think we're getting to the direction of this is where it's going. This is mostly what it's going to look like. We have our list of waivers that you're asking for, and we can,
I think it's responsive to what we've heard from the last hearing, the change. I think it's a positive response.
Herb, anything?
To be looked at.
I'm good.
Aaron, anything else that you want to?
No, I'm just, got a lot going on. A lot of acronyms. Yeah, but again, I will go back to public comment and certainly reference the shortage of water that we hear in articles in the newspaper. We've heard it all winter long. There's been 2, 3, 4 articles in the Cape Cod Times. We've heard it from the state that there is a drought, that, so I don't think that this is gonna be the tipping point, right? It's not gonna be a subdivision that's gonna put us into this area, but it's just another layer of use that I certainly question and worry about. I mean, the town's giving away rain buckets now, to hook up to your gutter so you can collect water because there's, that's what is that what we're looking at?
If I may on that one, because that's a little disingenuous, Mr.
I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know if they're giving away, but I've heard this program
Yeah, it's my program. I brought it to the town. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Recycle your rainwater.
I'm not dismissing it, Jim. But my point is that again, I feel like we've heard from the state that we are in a drought at this point. There's a drought conditions going on. So we've had this conversation with New England Development when we did that. We've had it with multiple projects along the way that there's a concern amongst residents of Cape Cod, people at the state who study this stuff, that there's water issue. I'm not a water expert. I don't know nothing really about, salt source aquifers, and, this is way above my pay grade, but I certainly take it into consideration about, does this make sense for the community as a whole? I don't know the answer. And I don't know how we get those answers either. I don't know who would help us with that. But ComWater, I guess, and DPW, we've heard this, this conversation about affluent from, sewer. We've seen the work going on all over town. We've seen work done on Bursa's Way. Is our level of capacity currently at the treatment plant able to handle all of this? Again, they're not just subdivisions, not going to tip it over the point, but is it adding to the big picture of a larger issue? And that's where, again, part of the 40B of the question in my mind comes, subdivision, is it more beneficial to the community to do, or is it, adding to a problem? I just don't know the answer. I'm certainly wavering on it as I go.
Yeah,
but
again, we're not experts, right? That's what we have to lean on.
No doubt. But I will say this to the applicant, no doubt. I mean, this has been, we talked about it the last time. I think there was a conversation at the end of the meeting where don't hold your breath. I did not hold my breath, but when I certainly saw this, I was appreciative of the effort. It certainly diminishes that 3-story building from, where I didn't think it fit into the community at that point. So I props to that, but there's a lot going on here. It's just a ton of information, and it's very hard to decipher everything we're hearing from, all these different things. So appreciate your time, I guess, with allowing us to continue it. We will not close public hearing, in my opinion. We won't do that. There are several folks. What do we want to do with these guys?
I mean, Mr. Julius, if you can keep it to 3 minutes here,
Absolutely, I will. I definitely will. John Julius Hyannis, thanks for the opportunity to speak. Waivers, there should be no such thing as a waiver we're talking about here. There also shouldn't be, we're tailor crafting for any developer. We're tailor crafting this for a developer's pocketbook, their take, if you will. I sat home tonight before I came here and I watched. I wasn't going to come. I said, I can go to the next one. Next one, I'll probably need 15 minutes. But right now, water and safety. There were some great points tonight about the safety and the water. Where do the children in this community, where are they expected to play on top of storm drains and get the toxins from storm drains? No sidewalks in the community. I did a lot of building in the 80s and into the early 90s. We would have been tarred and feathered if we went into any development. I said this before with regard to parking, but now sidewalks. You as a board should mandate and demand that anybody building in this town should have sidewalks. I don't care who it is. And don't tell me that they can't afford it. If they can't afford it, then go build somewhere else. Now let's talk about the water. Water is a real thing. Heather mentioned tonight she saw signs coming in. This is a real thing. I mean, in our town's own CWMP, I think it's page 266, they explicitly, this is 2021, I've been at this podium and said it 15 times in the last 6 months. Hyannis faces a 1.87 million gallon deficit water shortage a day. That's in the town's own comprehensive plan. And nobody's done a thing about it. That was 2021, by the way. You don't think it's over 2 million now?
Okay, and then with regard to the wastewater, I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Webb. Great point. Water and sewer. We can't handle any more of it. The last thing I'll say is Mr. Moran earlier tonight, I watched him say it. And he said, you don't have to approve everything. And you know something? If I was sitting in your seats, I would reject it completely. Everybody's, oh, it's a 40B. No, you don't have to do it. You know something? There's a lot of towns right here in our Commonwealth right now. And when Mara Healy and the idiots up there on Beacon Hill told them that they had to build all this extra housing near all these, stations and whatnot, there's a lot of towns in the Commonwealth that said, you know what? We don't care. And if I was sitting on this board, I don't care if it's a 40B. Mr. Kupker said earlier that he thinks there was only one 40B in the last 5 years here and maybe one in the last 10 years. Just because it's a 40B, I'll leave you with this. A lot of people, even some of my own friends and even people, councilors and on boards, think that the Commonwealth has this mandate. Every city and town in the Commonwealth has to have 10%. And it's not a mandate. It's not a statute. It is a recommendation only. In fact, the last time I checked, of the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts, only 76 have 10% affordable. The affordable housing's a joke. You know why? Because if I went in and built 100 units and only gave 25 toward the affordables, and somebody else does the same thing on the other side of town, you'll never reach 10%. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. If the state were really serious about this, they'd have a mandate that said, if John Julius comes in as a builder and he's going to build 100 units, 75% of those will go toward affordable. The whole thing is a joke. So in the end, and I'll be back next time, I'll take a lot more time than the 3 minutes I'm allowed here tonight, and thank you for that. But I'll say this, I wouldn't be afraid to just say no. And you know what? Other towns uptown and the rest of the state, they've said no, they don't care. And if I was sitting there and someone said, oh, are you afraid the town's going to get sued? Hey, I'll come in, okay, because I've done it in various courts. I don't have a law degree, but you know what? People don't need law degrees to read statutes and what they say. And I'll team up with Mr. Moore, and he's an attorney. We'll take the case on for you to defend you guys. Just say no, because it shouldn't be here. None of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Julius. Anything else from board members? So, Attorney Singer, what timeline are you proposing? Oh, Mr. Temple, like 2 minutes. You already spoke tonight, and everything's been received.
I realize that, but I need to clarify the process. So we made comments, they did the review, and then a number of answers were given you. I'm a technical reviewer, and I find a lot of these answers, and they're paid by the applicant, were given you. In fairness to you as a citizen, I need to respond, and I'm not going to do it now, but I need to know the process, and it'll be in another document possibly this week. You've got some answers, but a lot of it, I don't want to use the wrong word, twisted or whatever, but it's translated to fit to get the project in. I do want to clarify one thing to VHB, that there was an inadvertent remark from my previous testimony, or my wife's testimony. What she meant was you did the turn analysis of the intersection, where they stand there and they watch, they count how many cars came out of Juniper. What was asked for in the study was a comprehensive study. What they didn't do, and we keep talking about, is the intersectional line. That's great. What they didn't talk about is what's called a potential diversion route. And there are percentages and formulas that you can add to analyze that, but that was not in the study. That's why we keep talking about a comprehensive study to look at the impacts, the public safety impacts on an adjacent neighborhood. In the study, I heard the engineer say it's the perfect place for that road. In the study, I read every page. It says the sight lines to the west are just adequate. There's levels of sight lines. We've talked about the kids waiting. We've talked about the speed. We've talked about the corner of the road they're trying to walk. So there are issues, and that's all I want to point out. So I just want to know, is the process that I submit another document this week with what I think are more appropriate answers for you to to review.
Yep, yeah, you can submit it to Anna, and Anna will share it with the applicant and all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll leave public comment open. Attorney Singer, do you have a timeline of when you? Okay. Our next meeting is April 22nd, which is a remote meeting, and then May 13th is in person. May 13th.
I think as a board, we should consider an independent study.
That's
It's within our rights.
What, would you have, would the town have accomplished in the 2 weeks?
I would have to defer to Jim and Anna on timeline for town response.
Yeah, honestly, I think the board's going to want a comprehensive response back, right? So at the next, whenever you guys meet next, my expectation would be that Matt has, or Mr. Eddy, excuse me, has met with the town engineer, has reviewed the stormwater with them, has made any modifications to that plan. Any other changes that to the plan that the applicant wishes to consider would be proposed at that time. We would be able to reach out and discuss with Comp Fire, Water, BHC, whoever else is necessary. That could be a little quicker than any plan changes, I would imagine. Those plan changes come back, and we got to have, I think, proper amount of time for the public and the board to be able to consider those. I think 2 weeks might be tight for that. So I don't know.
It would have to, if we can't do it in 2 weeks, we'd have to do it on May 27th, because, yeah, if we,
The 27th is when we can all be available,
Okay.
although I recognize
Of May.
it's a remote meeting.
That's a remote meeting.
Which, I mean,
Of May.
again, with things that involve a lot of the public, my intention always has been to have one remote, because I hear from people that they're at home with their kids or whatnot, and they can't weigh in necessarily. So I'm not opposed to having a remote one. I don't know if we'll get to a final at that point, but I'm okay with it. If, again, Attorney Singer, I would defer to you if you're comfortable doing it that way,
well, that's when we're,
to keep it moving, yeah.
to be available, yeah. And
Okay,
we would.
so
we-
let's do that, and if something comes up
but-
again, you can always, push it out,
We
or,
certainly respect your decision to keep the meetings open, all good. We don't know if we don't think the plan's going to change a whole lot that would precipitate new observations. We'll see. And I just want to say that, I guess you say, forgive my naivete up to this point, but we've been listening all along, and we took out the emergency because people complained about it. Com put it in originally.
Yeah.
Guess we'll hear they'll put it back in.
I think it's a matter of.
You let me know what you want, and I'll put it in.
No, I mean, I think we have now expressed
All
who
right,
we
so
want to
we're doing
hear
our best to
from.
respond. We've
Yeah.
lowered the density. We have a traffic expert that the road's the right place. I don't want to get in disagreement with my neighbors at Waquacket Estates about the through road thing. We aren't actually building a through road. Ours is essentially a glorified dead end. So it's really, I think we're creating 2 3-way intersections, not 1 4-way intersection, and it's really about the behavior of people there in the subdivision, whether they will cross over because they're trying to avoid, for that percentage of people living in the new subdivision who want to take a left on Finney's as opposed to a left on Great Marsh, as opposed to a right off of Finney's, so maybe a third of the traffic might want to go towards BJ's. Would they cut through the neighborhood? I've done it. I find it not to be advantageous to my lifestyle. So don't hold your breath, Mr. Webb. We're not going to change the entrance. And if you chose to deny it on that, we would agree to disagree.
No, I think we expressed what we are looking for, experts in each of the fields that we have been asked to look at to give us their opinion or tell us they can't give us their opinion and they need an expert beyond that that tells us we then need to have a peer review or something on whatever it is.
And the one thing I'd ask you to just keep in mind is that if you have asked and asked again and you don't get a comment or a no comment, that you accept silence as a no comment.
Yes.
Because at some point we have to move forward.
Yeah.
Silence certainly is the answer. Before we break up, though, real quick, the conversation of Richardson Road came up, and that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think I know what you're going to say.
I'm repeating myself. Certainly, there's no legal way to give a road through there, nor, and I think a driveway, there's already a driveway there, but I wouldn't, because the easement's not wide enough, and we would be infringing upon our neighbor at 42 Richardson.
Mr. Friel, who was here tonight.
Friel, yeah, so that ain't gonna happen. So the sidewalk would need easements and across not only 40 Richardson, but one of the existing houses for a pedestrian walkway.
So certainly, again, going back to the infrastructure, right? We talked about you're going to put the sidewalk up to the intersection in front of the pump station.
Yeah.
Cross over to the package store.
Yeah.
Which, again, doesn't allow anyone to get from your new subdivision to the two parcels, Bell Tower and Centerville Shopping Plaza.
Right.
By foot. Because once you cross that road, the town's infrastructure doesn't have a crosswalk back, unless you go all the way to the light, I guess, potentially. If that sidewalk goes all that way, I can't quite remember. There is a sidewalk in front of Bell Tower at the intersection of Richardson, maybe? So would you consider running it around the front of the pump station to past where the flag man is? There's a building there.
On the state highway, Mr. Webb?
Yeah, good point. But I don't know. I mean, again, that's all. Is the state highway is just not just a boondoggle of paperwork.
Well, and you have to look at, one, it's a state highway and they've recently done work. There's moratoriums. There's all sorts of things. But also, remember, this asking one subdivision to.
I get it.
You've heard of issues on Great Marsh Road and 28, but it's a town issue at that point. It's not a one subdivision issue.
I completely agree, but it just goes to this question of pedestrian safety, pedestrian, just as in general, it goes to this, in my opinion, the question of does this.
Well, this subdivision, as I said before, it may be longer than people desire, but unlike any other subdivision from any other people you've heard tonight, someone in the subdivision can get out to a sidewalk, cross over on 28, walk down to the other light, cross back over, and get to the mall. So this subdivision will offer more connectivity. I'm not saying it's wonderful or perfect, but it offers more connectivity than any others. So I'd ask you to keep that in mind as well.
I guess the reaction I had to Mr. Egan's comment, he didn't close off the possibility of a walk or bike path.
To Richardson Road?
Right.
Well, no, that does, legally and practically, I think Mr. Egan was saying.
I agree.
To quote that, don't hold your breath, Mr. Webb.
I agree. It's an easement. I mean, it's a shared driveway easement that you can't expect either guy to give that up, in my opinion.
And it's a very narrow neck, and because there's no apartment building, you now have lots. I mean, there's just no way to
Again, I just wanted to get clarification on that before we broke up, that's all.
Okay. Thanks. So the intention here is to continue this to May 27th, 2026, right? So I'll make a motion to continue appeal number 2025-025 to May 27, 2026, which is a remote meeting.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And for the record, public comment is still open on the matter. So
Thank you very much for your continued time.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you all.
I would love we'll have plenty of time. If we have comments, we'll include them. I don't know if it rises to the level of a new submittal, but we'll keep editing, perhaps. But I would hope on the 27th that we could at least get a indication of we're in the density neighborhood, the layout neighborhood. We put to bed the things that would cause real major change, like moving the road, and then we can get into the
And we'll push on the
locations of the catch basins. I'm happy to defer.
We'll push on the town on different departments to get us the responses to some of those questions.
My fear is if they announce Commonwealth Builder and I'm not going to have an application, then money gets gone.
Yep. Yep. All right, correspondence, Cape Cod Commission Executive Committee agenda for Thursday, April 2nd, we received, and a DRI exemption decision on the Riverview School in Hyannis. Any matters not reasonably anticipated? Anyone? And upcoming hearings, April 22nd, 26th, remote, May 13th, 26th, in person, and then May 27th, 26th, remote. Anything we should know about, Anna? Are we busy, light? Okay. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.